A great magic rises before a sorceress as she recites an ancient language. Questions about what she might be doing linger in the air. At that moment, her wand implodes, startling the girl. She remarks that this is the place of magic, and that even the strongest wand was sacrificed to perform the summoning. Meanwhile, our friend is lying sleepily in his house until something interrupts his sleep, capturing his attention. Looking ahead, he thinks that his door is open, but from there, a wind resonates, while a light illuminates the passage. Ahead, he notices a dense forest, leaving our character bewildered. But he is sure that he is at home. Looking back, this is confirmed he is at home. But how did this happen? On the other side of the portal, there are creatures flying through the sky, and he wonders why dragons would be in his home. He woke up in another world, doubting the events that had befallen him. He questions how this could have happened. The previous day, he remembers being invited to go out, but it ended up being quite boring for him. And upon arriving home, he ended up passing out as soon as he opened the door. His head is still aching, and he believes he needs to get some sleep. A voice echoes in the distance, saying there is a lot of power there, questioning if it is the demon. It asks who said that, and the voice continues, "This is dangerous. It must be the great magic of a wizard. Do not approach. With such magical power, even the most capable may not be enough to defeat it. It is much more powerful than expected. Forget about defeating it, we are not even capable of touching it." Our boy is bothered because they are being too loud and he has a headache. There, some beautiful girls wearing magical robes walk and talk. As expected, even a wand, considered a national treasure, the summoning area had the greatest impact on this. He questions who the girl is, wondering if they are cosplayers. The girl steps forward, saying she managed to do it, but the girls ask the princess to wait. Our guy is annoyed, as he believes he needs to sleep a bit more. He needs to do something about it, so he steps forward and fills his lungs to let out a scream. He yells intensely, "Shut up! Do you have any idea how early it is?" His shout echoes, creating a strong gust of wind in the surrounding forest. They are stunned by this. The impact of the wind hits the girls, who are thrown into the air. They end up hitting trees in the surrounding area. Our boy is shocked by this, and they, trying to get up, ask what that was. Our boy is also perplexed, not understanding how they flew so far. The girl, struggling to get up, says that this is impossible. With just his voice, he managed to send us flying. Could he be a monster? Our guy approaches the girls. One of them asks the princess to step away, but they struggle to get up. Her legs are shaking, and she writhes to move. Tears stream down the girl, and she ends up peeing herself out of fear of that situation. Our guy apologizes, he didn't mean to disturb them. Internally, he wonders if the girl just got wet. He comments that he only wanted to scare them, and can't even imagine how he caused all of this. Our guy approaches asking where they are, and she, surprised, questions whether he really doesn't know. This is the place with the highest amount of magical power, and her house is right in the middle of it. Our guy doesn't understand what the girl is talking about and remains surprised. She confirms this is a magical place, and for that reason it is so powerful. Look around at what your scream caused. Our guy questions what this magic she is talking about could be. Another girl runs up to the princess, calling her. The princess just says that she can't go on like this, and that they need to get out of there. She raises her wand and then uses the emergency teleport. They all disappear from there, leaving our friend completely confused. He keeps questioning how he threw them with a shout. Soon, he realizes that he is indeed in another world. Amazed by this, he does not notice the person right behind him, in his house, calling him master. While the girl behind him watched, our boy was excited to be in another world. He soon realized he needed to learn many things to survive there, as his survival skills were not that great. But then he suddenly turns around and starts running into the house. Meanwhile, the girl hides. He runs to see something and notices that his food is still there. He sees that his clothes are also in place. And your bed too. Realizing that your things haven't changed much in the last 10 years, he is not surprised by this. Suddenly, he feels sleepy, and then throws oneself to take a nap. This has been your family's home for over 60 years, and when he is at home he feels safe, thinking that he could finally sleep there. So, he hears another scream telling him to run. He is surprised, wondering what is happening now. The voice continues to say that it can't believe the emergency teleport has put them inside the dragon's nest. He remembers whose voice it is. The princess, running, recalls that her remaining magical power should have taken them beyond the city. The girls are worried about the princess. They say they will distract the creature, as it needs to get out of there safely. The dragon, in its grandeur, stretches out before the girls. One of them, despairingly, asks where they should run. Being a member of the royal family, she could not forget her own people, so she will guide everyone into battle and not flee. However, they continue to say that she should run away, while the dragon quickly prepares a draconic breath. They try to protect themselves from the dragon's breath using a magical barrier. And then an explosion happens next to our boy's house. He is annoyed once again by how noisy they can be. The girls, in turn, say that the barrier is breaking. He is really suffering from a headache. One of the girls asks the princess to leave them there and run away. They beg for it. She replies that she can't, because the dragon's wrath won't end with them. It will continue to kill more. Our boy is really angry about all of this. He runs back to the door and catches his breath. He yells that he already said he needs to sleep. At that moment, a small tornado begins to form toward the girls. They become stunned, exclaiming that they need to escape from there. The typhoon hits the girls, who try to stay strong while being dragged through the air along with the dragon. The dragon falls to the ground with a great crash as they land on top of it. They try to get up, staying steadfast. Our protagonist is surprised to have generated a typhoon with his scream. He runs towards the girls, asking if they are okay. They are shocked and terrified by the power of our hero. The princess, once again, tries to remain steadfast, saying that she must resist. Our friend is shocked to realize that they are urinating in his garden. Just his voice made them pee themselves. This leaves our guy surprised. The girl remarks that he defeated the dragon, questioning if he would now like to punish them. The princess quickly begs him to spare their lives and take only her, if necessary. But our bothered guy just lets out a sigh. "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't want your lives. But could you please take this dragon away from here? It will bother me if it stays in this place." They look without understanding the words of our comrade. "How do you mean to take this dragon?" But it couldn't normally be defeated without a group of at least 10 skilled people. She explains that the scales can be sold for a fortune, and that her heart is more valuable than any jewel due to its magical properties. She questions why he left something like a great treasure for them. He comments that he has no use for it, that they can take it and sell it if they want. He doesn't care, just that they stay away from there and let him sleep soon. He really needs to sleep, or he will get a headache. The girl comments that she must have enough magical energy to make him fly. She then casts a spell, and the dragon starts to lift off the ground. She says her name is Diana Medicine, the second princess of the Kingdom of Prussia, and she will certainly pay this debt, asking him to remember her name. He only thinks about how tired he is, while the girls leave there with the dragon flying. Our boy is happy to finally be able to sleep in peace. He knocks on the door and enters your house. Some time later, our character is sleeping peacefully, but soon questions what this feeling might be. Someone calls him sir. She said she prepared a snack for him. Our friend questions what is sleeping. In front of him, he sees the girl's soft legs. Surprised, our guy asks who is she. She says she prepared his food, but our boy still hasn't understood anything. He is in doubt, wondering if he forgot to lock the door earlier. She says no, the door was truly locked, and that door will not open for anyone except him. He's surprised, questions the veracity of it. But if that's true, then who are you? She then introduces herself, saying her name is Sakura. She is the spirit of this guy, and that now, decades after his birth, she can finally meet him. She can finally meet the family that has been taking care of her for so long. She says she was very embarrassed, so she ended up hiding. He then asks how she got that name. He thinks her name reminds him of the cherry blossom flowers. Our boy then says that the pillar of his house was made from a tree of that flower. She is very happy to know that he remembers that. He explains that it was his grandmother who told him that. In a memory, your grandfather remarks that it is truly rare and an excellent tree for building a house. The boy was amazed at how incredible his house is. He soon realizes that this is indeed another world, as his house has turned into such a cute girl. She thanks our boy for his kind words and questions whether he is uncertain about the recent events. And then she asked him to eat what she made. She used the ingredients he had in the freezer for that. Our boy is very happy to see homemade food in front of him. He asks if it is something that was in the refrigerator, if the food would still be cold, and she confirms that. She explains that she is capable of using magic to generate electricity and also applied it to produce water for him, which should work as expected. He is amazed by the versatility of magic. She asks him to help himself before the food gets cold. Thanking our guy doesn't stand on ceremony to eat quickly. After finishing, he thanks Sakura again for the meal she prepared for him. He then asks about this world and whether he and his home were summoned there. She explains that the two had been in a magical place for so long that they absorbed the power of magic. Trying to understand, he questions whether it is what that princess mentioned earlier. She says that the princess understanding is still superficial and that it is actually called Dragon Veins, a place where magical energy gathers. Sakura explains that the same power exists in both and that our boy has been there since he was born. Therefore, he is full of magical energy. He thinks about how he previously formed a tornado. She confirms that, in fact, this was only a fraction of his abilities and that it would be great for our protagonist to practice how to use this magic. He gets up saying they should go outside because he doesn't want to damage anything in case he loses control. She smiles, thanking him for caring about her. He then asks her to wait while he changes clothes. Soon, the two leave the house, and our character is impressed with the view. But soon he gets annoyed with all the mess left by the girls from before. Sakura asks what he would like to practice first. He believes it would be good if he could get some food and that he would like to focus on his survival skills. She says she knows what can be used to get food, leaving our boy surprised by her. After using an ability, she shows what she has just obtained. In her hands, a freshly picked apple appears. Our friend is surprised by this, not understanding where she came from. She explains that they can make apples with the seeds they obtain and plant them in that place. Thus, these vast lands would become greener. He comments that it would not be easy, as trees take a long time to grow. She explains that they can use magic to make them grow. Our boy is still surprised by this, but she mentions that, since it's his first time, she would act as an intermediary for the magic and, since she is attuned to his magic, he should use it for his own benefit with the magic. She asks him to touch her body and imagine trees growing. He questions these words, wondering where he should touch her. She then says that her head would fit well. Our boy, still surprised, says yes and that he will do it now. When our friend touches the spirit's head, it reacts. He is shocked, thinking about what happened and why she needs to make those expressions. She asks to imagine the trees growing, and then she will adjust the use of power. He thinks about how a tree grows and that everything starts with the seeds germinating. Trying to focus on the seeds germinating, our guy concentrates. She comments that she can feel it. She puts her hands on the ground, thinking that the image is being sent, but his power is too strong to handle. The seed soon begins to grow rapidly into a sprout. Our guy is happy to see that it really sprouted in just a few seconds. And if it's that easy, he can make an entire tree grow quickly and doesn't need to do each step separately. She confirms, but thinks she feels her body warmed by so much power. He asks if she got tired of it, but Sakura just explains that she was a little surprised. Then, Sakura says they should continue, and the young man agrees. He believes he understood and closes his eyes again to concentrate. Again, he rests his head on the spirit and continues to exert power. She remains amazed at the amount of power he is able to unleash. It is much more than would be necessary to make them grow. She realizes that it's too much for her to handle. Soon the plants grow again all at once. As they grew rapidly, Sakura held on with all her strength to our boy. The flowers of the trees have blossomed. And the girl could only think of all his power coursing through her. Our guy looked up, impressed by how quickly the tree had grown, but upon looking at Sakura, he became concerned for her. The girl was lying on the ground, caught off guard by everything that had happened. She comments that he seems to have already understood the concept of magic while picking up an apple. He asks to enjoy the fruits that grew with his power. He just mentions that, in fact, they were made by both. Sakura smiles, agreeing with your words. When he bites into them, our friend is surprised by their taste, commenting that they are fresh and very sweet. He then understands what it's like to use magic. She, happy, comments that they should turn this place into an orchard. Our boy confirms, saying they should plant a few more trees. She replies that she's ready. While they are distracted, a creature hovers over both. The bird quickly glides over them, our boy is startled, and Sakura is taken by the bird, which flies away. Meanwhile, the princess walks through the forest carrying a bag, complaining about how heavy it is. She is pleased that they managed to sell the dragon for a high price of 3 silver. She committed to give that amount to the man who defeated the dragon and did not allow anyone to follow her, as this is a very dangerous place. She is upset that she cannot make the coins float because she has little mana. In the distance, in the sky, she notices a creature flying. She soon realizes that it is a great rainbow dragon. It has high magical resistance and is a creature stronger than a normal dragon. She is surprised by this sudden appearance. Commenting that this is a dragon rarely seen by human eyes, he wonders if it is being attracted to the place of high magic. Our boy, however, looks frustrated, saying that he needs to save her soon. He needs to use magic to save Sakura. He thinks he must have extreme focus to avoid harming the girl. Reflecting on the image he needs to visualize, he wonders if it is possible to use magic without her being with him. Our boy makes the tree grow quickly, causing it to reach the creature. He is happy to be able to use magic on his own. When the dragon is hit, it ends up releasing Sakura into the air. Upon realizing this, he makes the tree grow to the side to cushion his fall. But it's not enough, and she's about to fall to the ground. Our friend runs towards her and manages to catch her before she falls to the ground. But the situation he manages to grab is a bit unusual. He quickly apologizes, saying it was an accident. She just smiled, thanking him. But the dragon soon reappears there. He says he needs to defeat the creature quickly. Sakura comments that perhaps the dragon wants to turn the magical place into its nest. Our guy's stomach growls, and he seems embarrassed by the untimely moment. Sakura is surprised to realize that our boy is hungry, concluding that he might have used too much magic to make the tree grow. She then comments that, based on the information she has, dragon meat is excellent. Our guy wonders if this dragon is poisonous because of the strange color of its scales, not to mention that it is enough meat for both of them. But since it attacked them before, there is nothing to be done. Determined, our boy focuses on eating this dragon. Now that the girl is no longer in the dragon's claws, he doesn't need to worry anymore. That's why he is going to shoot something to take down the dragon. Our guy screams that he wants to eat meat, causing a typhoon to appear. By a hair, it almost hit the creature, but he realized it didn't work, perhaps because the distance was too great. They realize that it is escaping, which makes both of them worried. He realizes it would be quite risky if that were to attack other people, but he doesn't know if he can hit it from that distance. Sakura comments that the mental image is important. He needs to concentrate when casting the magic. He then remembers when he made the tree grow, so he decided to try again. He screams for it to fall, and a typhoon once again gathers strength towards the creature. The dragon tries to escape from there, but soon it is hit and ends up falling, causing an explosion. Meanwhile, the princess questions what that sound is. She sees the shockwave coming towards her. The princess is caught by the explosion and wonders if this will always happen when she passes by there. Our friend is happy to have finished the dragon hunt. Satisfied, he questions what they will do with the creature. Sakura, smiling, asks to leave this with her as she has some knowledge about how to prepare the dragon. She says that magic makes things quite easy. Soon the two return home, and a rainbow dragon steak is served. While our guy eats, his smile shines, saying that it's amazing. He comments that, even firm, it melts in the mouth, and that he could eat this meat every day. She mentions that she also prepared a storage room for freezing using magic. It is underground, right next to the apple trees. Our boy Happy observes that Sakura can do anything. She replies that this is not true, as it was he who saved her today. He thinks about being self-sufficient in another world. The princess wakes up in the middle of the forest. Soon he realized that he had ended up peeing again because of the magic of our boy. She says she will return later as she leaves back the way she came. Time passed, and the apple trees continued to yield well. Our boy, of course, continued to do his part in producing the apples. Sakura comments that he's getting the hang of it. Our boy responds that it's becoming much easier to make them grow with his magic. Sakura says it's time for the next lesson, intriguing our boy. She replies that she will guide him next time. Asking him to touch her and bring a bit of magic, the girl leans against the apple tree. He becomes somewhat cautious with the scene before him. While touching her shoulder, he asks if she is ready. He infuses his power into her, making our girl suffer a little. At this moment, the tree starts to grow some branches to the sides, and lights shine from it. At this point, a humanoid creature formed from an apple tree is created. Our friend looks puzzled, not understanding what it's about. Sakura replies that it is a wooden golem. She explains to him that he is perfect for collecting the apples. He is surprised to learn that magic allows him to do this as well. Sakura notices quick movement around her. Some humanoid wolves were running quickly around there. She goes into shock upon realizing their intention. Turning to our guy, she grabs his attention. He asks if there is something wrong. Sakura replies that she needs him to become one with her. Our guy collapses upon hearing this phrase and misunderstanding it. He contemplates that, like a house, they have been together forever, but it has only been a few days since they met. He starts to realize that it is quite hot outside. Our boy takes it another way and thanks the girl, contemplating that this is really going to happen. She asks him to close his eyes and he agrees. Their heads touch for a moment. She says they are close, and he thinks about how close they are. Our guy can hear everything, from your breath to Sakura's heartbeat. It's as if the space between them has vanished. She is so warm and comfortable now. He only thinks about how he might end up addicted to this feeling. Upon opening his eyes, our character finds himself faced with a screen above him, leaving him bewildered. He asks what all this is. She explains that it is the view from the eyes of a bird from her home. That is why Sakura connected with him. She explains that this way he can see things that she sees too. He replies that he never imagined she could do things like the spirit of a house, but inside he cries thinking that he had very different ideas. Sakura explains that currently 65 monsters are being monitored as they attempt to break her barrier. She needed to synchronize with him because she noticed the presence of the creatures. The wolfman laughs as he thinks about the amount of magical power in that place. He comments that it is the perfect home for his clan of wolves to become the top of the forest. This is Gallo-Garu, the being who rules the forest where our friend Daichi is living. One of your wolf soldiers replies that all units are on site. The wolf remarks that this will be his new home. They must fight until the last city is destroyed, and in the end, they will celebrate with a feast. Tell all units to move forward and destroy our enemies. The wolves begin their charge toward the man's house. He, however, notices the movement and, clenching his fist, declares that he will not let anyone stay in his territory. The wolves advance rapidly through the forest. Their leader sends a message to all their units. They quickly receive his message. The leader of the wolves orders them to destroy their enemies. Your elite units must quickly attack and separate the enemies. With their telepathic communication and coordinated work, it will be easy to do this. He is confident that nothing can stop them now. Meanwhile, our boy keeps monitoring. He realizes that their movement quickly approached his house. That leaves our boy worried. realizing that they are all aiming at this magical power. He notices that there are 65 creatures surrounding him and wonders if it is possible to fight against all of them. Sakura quickly asks him to use her, explaining that since they are in sync, if he channels his magical power into her, she will be able to create traps for the monsters. He is happy to hear this and realizes that the enemies will split into 6 units. The two touch their foreheads as our boy says he is counting on Sakura. The wolves keep marching. However, something catches their attention. The tree beside you starts to move suddenly, and they end up being shocked by this scary scene. Our guy commands the golems to rise, and so it happens, the tree golems rise from the ground with absolute strength. In all directions, 6 tree golems rise in front of the attackers, halting their movement. The wolves are completely stunned, not understanding anything. It is reported to the pack leader that this is not a living creature, it is something made with magic, referring to it as a golem. He retorts by asking if they are stupid, as they can imagine how much magical power would be needed to create a golem like that. Usually, golems are human-sized. They realize that the great golems keep growing larger and begin to wonder if this might not be an illusion. The leader begins to hear requests for help from all units. The other troops say they are having major problems over there. He is then astounded to realize that each unit was intercepted by one of them, realizing they walked straight into his trap. The wolf charges to attack the tree golem, but our boy is determined. He will not allow intruders in his territory. He then commands the golems to get rid of the invaders. In the blink of an eye, the creatures are slapped by the large tree golems and end up flying through the air. On all sides, only flying and screaming wolves can be seen. Our boy just watches the creatures take off like Team Rocket. Sakura, our girl, is very happy because she managed to control all the golems. He simply explains that the trap proved to be very effective for this battle. Our friend's stomach suddenly growls. He explains that he used a lot of magic power, and of course, ended up hungry. She reminds him that he hasn't eaten anything since the morning, and that means it's time for a snack. He thanks Sakura for that. At the same time, in the neighboring cities, the appearance of golems became controversial and panic spread widely. Our guy walks, thinking he's lucky, since there are only trees and rocks there. Around him, he notices some animals running freely and then remembers that it has already been a week since he arrived in this world. In the past, he would have left home at 6 in the morning for work, and when leaving work, he would barely catch the last train. He informs Sakura that he has returned home. The girl is happy to see him there, but she quickly explains her concern that monsters are trying to infiltrate the grounds. He soon thinks that he still doesn't seem to have fully gotten used to this. He places his hand on the girl's shoulder, asking her to show him the creature. The panel appears in front of you, where he can see the monsters. Our boy questions whether they are the same wolves as before. But he notices that they are different from before. They are not dressed for battle and there are fewer of them around. Wondering if they are not going to fight, he says that if the wolves show themselves to be hostile, then they should prepare traps. Our boy meets the wolves, who quickly notice him. He questions what the reason is for them being there. One of the wolves remarks that, indeed, it is the magical power of kings. The wolves suddenly kneel before our boy, called King. They explain that they are a family of wolves who have ruled this demonic forest for generations. Their leader, Garo, says that he surrenders to him as his king, and as proof of your dedication, by your side, a slender wolf girl reveals herself. Garo says he will give his little sister as an offering, and she asks him to appease his wrath with her. Our boy is puzzled, questioning the ears, the tail, and whether she truly belongs to the wolf species. Embarrassed, he asks, "What do you mean, my king, and why is she naked?" Our hero watches the small and defenseless wolf girl, asking Garo what the meaning of all this is. He then says that if she is not enough, he should devour her too. The girl explains that she has great magical power, and that if he digests her, he will absorb that magic. Garo pleads for you to accept the offering and spare the rest of his tribe. He didn't know he could absorb magic that way. But then, he speaks surprised. without understanding the meaning of them, thinking that one of them would be eaten. Garo is shocked by this statement. He explains that he has no intention of becoming your king or devouring your little sister, he just wishes to live there in peace. Garo questions whether, then, he will forgive them for having attacked him. He explains that they fought and surrendered, and it is the right of the victor to use them as tools, thus he could order them to do anything. Our boy takes the little overcoat from the little she-wolf and says that's a good idea. He orders them to stop attacking people, as this is a big problem. The girl looks at our boy, surprised. Garo is still surprised by the generosity of our deer. He hugs his sister with happiness that she is well. He is still surprised, because even though they are wolves, they still have rationality. So, he asks them to leave and thrive on their own. Garo insists that he accepts becoming his king or, at least, accepts his offering. They brought with them several edible items from their warehouses and ask that you accept this offering. He finds it really tempting. But he only accepts a small portion of items, asking them to take the rest to their families. Garo wonders if she will consider his offer. He explains that there are only 2 people there, so they don't need much food. The wolves greet our dear one, while one of them says that it is, indeed, the duty of a king to care for his subjects. The other says to greet their king with a good heart. They then withdraw, leaving our boy astonished. He is happy to finally be able to return home, saying that these guys are very noisy and he doesn't understand why they want him to become their king. Sakura says she will use that to prepare tonight's dinner. Our boy is happy about this, now that they have a larger variety of ingredients. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Metis, after a few days since the last attempt, the princess is determined to complete her mission this time. She is ready for her journey. Loading some bags of gold, she contemplates that this time she will deliver it to him. Our boy is surprised, looking up and questioning what that is. There are 2 dragons there, roaring at each other as if they were communicating. He observes a golden apple in his garden, questioning if it is something like a rare consumable and if it can be consumed. Sakura comments that there is another one over there. She says there should be no problem eating them, wondering if the taste will be different. He is happy to have one for each of them. The 2 then taste the apple, and they are surprised that they are sweet and juicy. But our boy notices that there is something different about this apple. Your body starts to warm up, you feel that something is happening. It is soon understood to be a kind of aphrodisiac. Our boy with the red face calls for Sakura. She replies to our boy while also blushing. He remarks that, since the first time they saw each other, there was something he wanted to say. A voice then echoes, questioning if he is serious. He, surprised, asks if she said anything. Sakura replies that she didn't say anything. Above them, the 2 dragons are talking. One comments on the problem the king caused by banishing someone there. The other comments that this is ridiculous and that nothing could harm them there. Our boy, surprised, questions if the dragons are talking. Sakura says she can hear them too. While smelling the apple, she comments that the scent is of draconic magic, so perhaps that's why they can hear them, because they ate it. Since this apple tree grew in the place where the dragon was killed, dragon's blood is like pure magical energy. Perhaps this blood flowed through the soil and mingled with the magic, thereby ensuring the effect when consuming the apple. He is perplexed by this noble knowledge. And maybe they should acquire different skills from the blood of other animals and should try that later. A sudden explosion occurs, and our guy wonders what it could be now. One of the golems holds the princess while she tries to defend herself, only to be attacked more forcefully. She lets out a light hello, but she is peeing again. Our friend is completely ecstatic about the possibility that her appearance might repeat these circumstances. Bravo, our guy questions how many times she intends to make a mess in his garden. She tries to explain herself, saying that this time she came with a good reason. She explains that she needs to pay what she owes him. She introduces herself again as Dionea and calling that a witch princess is something that brings shame. But our guy just thinks that she also didn't call him by name. He then quickly questions why she came here. She explains that she ended up dropping it when she was grabbed by the golem. Running, she grabs and drops the bags, thanking for defeating the dragon. With everything that was sold from the dragon, she managed to get 3 silver coins. That is more than 3 million gold pieces. He is surprised to see that this is the currency used in this world. She explains that this is enough for him to live for the rest of his year without needing to work. He tries to compare this value with the yen he used in his old world. The girl is surprised by the golem he has for protection, but she points out that she had warned him that she would come back there. Our guy is surprised by how honorable she is. At that moment, the dragon appears from behind, saying that it will attack first. Our guy turns his gaze to the creature. The other dragon questions if he's sure, since the rumors are that this guy ate a dragon, and his king said he is beyond our limits until he has the chance to face him personally. But the other dragon retorts, saying that our guy is so small, and if he really killed a dragon, it is our duty to kill him, and by the way, it might be delicious with all the power I'm feeling from him. Our boy mentions that the creatures are planning to devour them. He wonders if all these dragons could defeat him. The princess starts counting the dragons, and as she surpasses 10 she falls into despair, saying that it's the end for them. Our boy questions why so many dragons are there. It's as if they are covering the skies. He turns to the princess and remarks that she must be cursed. Every time she shows up there, a dragon ends up attacking. She tries to defend herself, commenting that it's not her fault. Our guy just sighs, saying it was a joke. Our friend comments that they should start preparing to fight. She questions whether only they would fight against so many dragons. The dragons, conversing, designate one of them to make the first attack. He quickly descends toward our group, telling the others to follow him afterward. The princess feels uncertain about this. Our dear warns that they are on their way. She, resolute, replies that she will fight by his side, hoping to be of some use. Even without knowing if she could do anything, with so many of them, she gets ready. She aims straight at the dragon's head, using her most powerful magic. Right after charging her attack, a powerful beam emanates from her wand. She wields her flaming spear. The attack spirals towards the dragon. The moment it hits the dragon, it tries to dodge. An explosion happens, and everyone keeps looking. The princess questions whether she managed to do this, as the cloud dissipates in the air, but from it, the dragon lets out a roar, demonstrating its fury. She is shocked to realize that, even with her best magic, she was unable to defeat him. Perhaps this is not an ordinary dragon. Not to mention that there are more than 10 of them there. The dragons talk to each other again. They comment on how weak they are, and the man there is so scared that he didn't even attack. The others agree, believing that they must proceed. They soon join forces to launch a coordinated attack. Everyone starts channeling magic in their mouths to unleash a fiery roar, saying they must end them. Our protagonist notices the movement and comments that this doesn't look good at all. He asks them to hide behind him, as he will take care of it from there on. But the witch is still reluctant and claims that she can handle it. She explains that she cannot stay there and watch him fight alone, but before she does, something happens. Ask her to slap you on the butt. She explains that her former mentor used to do that when she was unable to use magic properly. Our friend is shocked, questioning what kind of training this is. But upon seeing all the dragons ready to strike, he cannot hesitate in a moment like this. Since it was her who asked, "Don't blame me if it hurts." Our guy gives the girl a strong slap, and she lets out a faint moan. She feels like it's working, thinking that she will be able to fight now, but the feeling that fills her is different from the usual. She feels warm, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt. Instead, her magic is overflowing. The dragon's breath follows, coming together and forming a coordinated attack that fills the scene. She, with a red face, hopes this works. Your magic grows quickly, and in front of you, a huge fireball descends toward our group. In a frenzy of emotions, the princess fires a powerful laser that pierces through the fireball, causing it to collapse due to the amount of energy applied. The dragons soon notice the power rising and comment that it is very hot. As power advances, They wonder if they will find their end there. After the impact, the hit dragon falls to the ground with a loud thud. The princess, still in shock, stands there, watching the dragon she just brought down. The other dragons realize that their companion has been killed with a single blow. They notice that it is exactly as their king had said, so they must flee and not return there anymore. The princess, still shocked, questions how this happened. It seemed like something akin to legendary-class magic, and she had never done that before. Our boy just asks why she is complaining. She then realizes that perhaps he used his magic to enhance his attack with this power. That would be a plausible reason for it to have been so powerful. However, the girl's legs began to shake. She falls to the ground shortly after, commenting that her power was completely drained after that attack. She questions our protagonist about why he seems so calm. He just says he doesn't understand those things. And anyway, we can use this as usual. I don't know how you did it, but you must have worked hard to bring it down from the sky, and I would be sad to leave you behind. She, still perplexed, realizes that she really defeated the dragon. She repeats that the dragon is precious, questioning whether he will send her back with another dragon. She then asks if our boy wasn't mad at her since she came there without his permission, even though he had told her to stay away. It is at this moment that he remembers everything. He had really told her to keep her distance. But our boy looks at Sakura, and she seems to feel sorry for the poor princess. He smiles, commenting that it doesn't matter what happened, the important thing is that he is home. Since this place is all he has in this world, Sakura smiles at the words of our boy. The princess thanks, and he asks the reason for that. She explains that she ended up feeling relieved by your words. She doesn't have much power at the moment, but she will return at night to take the dragon, and hopes to see him again. He asks her not to bring a dragon again next time, and she agrees, hoping it won't happen. After the princess left the two alone, he thinks he should use the golem to take the dragon out of the territory, as the body would draw less attention if it were far away. He is hungry and hopes to eat something and take a nap. Sakura replies that she will make pudding for the day. Some time later, the princess uses her magic to bring the dragon back to the kingdom. But she questions why the dragon is there, realizing that perhaps they have moved it off the property. Since it's late, she will just take the dragon home. Using teleportation, she disappears with the dragon towards the kingdom. Meanwhile, in the castle of Prussia, the princess together with the dragon appears through magic. One of her guards soon arrives, asking Princess Diana about the meaning of that. She refers to him as the great master of the magical knights. She explains that it is a dragon that was killed with an attack, asking to be taken in parts to the crown's treasure. He says he can truly feel her magic in his scales. He also remarks that this is an advanced dragon, saying that she has really grown. When thinking about bringing down such a dragon on her own, she simply comments that she didn't mention defeating it by herself. She only said she brought it down with one attack. The magical power that did this was transferred to her, something that exceeds her own. That is what killed the dragon. The knight is shocked, questioning what kind of advanced technique that would be, and surely requiring a lot of preparation. She knows that, normally, this would be the case, but even so, he did it with just a touch. Mentioning our boy, she explains that he could be from a higher class or even a mythical class wizard. The knight, still surprised, comments if there really is someone of that magnitude living in that forest. He keeps saying that, from this place, sightings of the domain of the King of Dragons have been reported starting to move again, and this could become a problem for them. Meanwhile, in the realm of our protagonist, a girl walks towards her house. Our boy simply asks who the girl is. She, confident, asks if this is where the man who eats dragons lives. The two walked softly through the forest. It's when our guy notices the girl looking at the apple tree. He comments, smiling, that at least this intruder is cute, asking the young lady if she is lost there. The little question is whether that is an apple. Our friend comments that it is. Even though it is golden, it is still an apple. She says she saw similar things on her trip. Our friend thinks that the girl looks too young to be leaving home, wondering if that is natural in this new world. She introduces herself as Hesti, saying she is glad to have found him. They shake hands, and our protagonist says he is also happy to meet her. He asks if she is hungry when a rumble in her stomach catches her off guard. The girl says she doesn't know, but her stomach really did make a noise. Our protagonist is confused by this. He turns to Sakura, who asks what he needs. He asks if it would be okay for the girl to eat one of the regular apples, but she's not sure. In Sakura's view, she perceives a strong magical power emanating from the little girl. She then says it will be okay, because even though she is young, she has great magical power, but she is not sure what a golden apple would do. Sakura is still surprised, internally questioning how the girl could have so much magical power within her. Our friend, while picking one of the fruits, is surprised to learn about the little girl's power. He offers the fry to Hesti, who thanks him, saying she will try it. The little girl brings the apple to her mouth, and she blushes with the taste of the fruit she just ate. Soon she, without hesitation, devours the fruit completely, leaving our two perplexed by the voracity of the little one. The girl soon realizes that the fruit is gone, and asks for more. Our guy questions how she ate down to the pit and if she was really that hungry. Sakura laughs as our guy realizes she is indeed in a good mood. He then asks Sakura if she likes children. She replies that of course. She remembers when he was a child and had a lot of energy, there was never a dull moment in her house. He smiles, but thinks it seems kind of strange to talk to his own house. Hesti said it was delicious and believes she is satisfied. Our dear son lets out a sigh. Lifting the hand to the girl's head, he comments that she really knows how to use some rather complicated words. Turning to Sakura, our boy asks if they should go home. He then asks Hesti if she has plans. The girl comments that the fruit was delicious and thanks again, saying she must leave. Our guy waves, saying they'll see each other soon. She says the same. So, set out on your journey, sneaking through the forest. Sakura says that this child is really strange. He replies that she has been the most normal thing around here so far. Some time later, a strong voice declares, "I have been waiting for you." A huge and majestic dragon welcomes the Dragon King Hesti Redona. He says he is glad that she has returned safely from that dragon's territory. Hesti gets rid of the clothes she was wearing, while the dragon claims to have brought some outfits for her. The girl quickly changes, smiling. The dragon remarks that his human disguise was perfect as always. She, however, says not to be mistaken, since they both worked on that disguise. The dragon questions how your investigation into the potential war against humans went. Hesti Redona reflects on her strength. She explains that, in fact, she wouldn't want to fight against them. The dragon, in shock, questions why. She explains that even with her power, she wouldn't be able to win the battle and also wouldn't want to burn that place, leaving the dragon shocked. She explains that, besides that man being much stronger than her, the apples he produces are delicious. The dragon still seems to be in doubt about what happened there. He then comments that many of his young dragons are already on standby to make the attack, even those who witnessed his power. She says she knows that, but asks me to wait a little, saying that he will challenge him, and when others can grasp his true power, they will retreat at once. Saying that in this battle, the survival of the dragon race is at stake. If she wins, he will die, but if she loses, those foolish dragons will never give up. And like the queen who rules the dragons, even if she loses, honor her battle without flinching. Some time later, in our girl's room, indecent things were happening. Our colleague called for Sakura, who quickly responded to his call. He explains that the garden ended up suffering damage because of those dragons, and it cannot start the repairs with that big rock there. He would like to use one of the golems to move it, asking them to synchronize. She just agrees with that. Our guy notices the girl's face and asks if she is okay, since she looks out of breath. She just says she's fine, and that she ended up running when she was called. He understands, but he seems a little suspicious. Sakura says everything is fine and thanks for the concern. He then leans his head, saying that they should begin. The golems quickly rise from the ground when summoned. He questions whether they are too small for the size of the rock. so he decided that he should combine them. Thinking about it, perhaps by putting the power in his hands, he will be able to easily manipulate the golems. He then decides to try reaching out to the golem. The energy of our guy begins to direct toward the creature. He is pleased to realize that he can adjust the format this way, and it seems that it will be easy. But soon he realizes that the trunk has become pliable, and his hand ends up being sucked in. At that moment, the golem starts to move, doing the same pose as our friend. He comments that he didn't send him to move. She explains that it seems to be following the movements of our boy. This gets our guy excited. He then decides to try to change things up a bit, and the golem quickly responds to the movement, replicating it. Our guy is fascinated, and Sakura comments that it seems like they are in sync. When he receives his power, he ends up copying his movement. He becomes really interested in how magic can be amazing, and ends up having a great idea about it. He then places the two golems side by side and starts to tinker with them. Sakura starts to laugh, remembering that he looked exactly like this when he was a child. She sees our guy in the same way he used to look in the past. Suddenly, a Megazord golem with our boy attached materializes in front of Sakura, leaving only our boy's face exposed. A wooden armor, he declares, saying it is made from two wooden golems. She is truly enchanted, without imagining that this could be done by the golems. He believes it still has a strange shape, but it adds that it looks like a mecha, but still has great motor control over it. He decides to try then. He grabs the rock from before. The rock is easily lifted from the ground with a lot of strength. He seems pleased to realize that the armor makes it really very easy. After that, he decides to wrap things up there. Sakura just smiles in agreement. Later on, many trees fly through the air. Our guy is pleased to have made anti-aircraft weapons from his trees. He twisted and applied pressure to the trunks until they bent and stuck in the ground, with artillery mounted on their branches. When firing, their load is released against the target. He realizes that repairs and improvements could never be so easy, thanks to the wooden armor he made earlier. He decided to extend the fields and set up new traps at the same time. He mentioned that he had become quite accustomed to making them. At that moment, Sakura collapsed from exhaustion. Our friend is surprised by this. He quickly holds her in his arms, calling her name. He asks if the girl is okay, but Sakura just apologizes for it. She says she believes she has used too much magical power recently, but that's because she was really having a lot of fun with him, so she ended up using her power without thinking. Our friend is surprised to realize that she needs to regain her magic. Sakura explains that she receives magic from the Dragon Veen, so she will be fine. She just needs to rest for a few hours. Our guy looks back upon hearing some snaps coming from the house, and she literally starts to wither. Sakura apologizes, saying that the house ended up becoming weak due to her current state. He asks if there is any way to fix this. Sakura explains that there is a way. He could give a bit of his magic. He doesn't mind doing it, as long as it is beneficial for her, as long as he knows what he needs to do. She seems a little unsure in saying, so it mentions that the easiest and most efficient way to replenish your mana is to fulfill your desires. Our friend questions what it is about. She remains uncertain about telling him that. Sorry, I can't help with that. Let me know if there's something else you'd like to discuss. Our guy believes he didn't hear that last part correctly. He really believes he lost his mind, so he asks her to repeat the last sentence. Sakura again explains that he needs to satisfy his libido. I'm afraid I can't talk about that topic, sorry about that. After saying that, she blushes, while our guy remains silent. She explains that she barely slept and that the food can hardly provide the amount she has been losing. He asks if she really hasn't been sleeping well. Our guy finally realizes that he has never seen her sleeping and also doesn't see her eating enough to recover the mana she uses. He questions whether this is how she has always regained her mana, leaving our girl embarrassed. She answers yes, saying that she has never had so little mana before. He then wonders if she does this every time, leaving our boy embarrassed. She apologizes for bringing up such an awkward subject. The protagonist argues that she could simply rest, but it ends up not thinking that it is the right thing to do. He argues whether receiving her mana would make her feel better faster. She confirms that it would be much more efficient to rest. Our boy raises Sakura, saying he will do this. He will submit to your desires. Upon returning home, the rain began to fall. Our guy laid Sakura down gently, so he asked if she was ready. Sakura just asked if it was really okay to do that. The cracks continued to spread. Our guy realizes that he is out of time and that the house could end up collapsing there. It is questioned whether everything would fall into place once her mana was restored. She affirms so, saying that, as she is the spirit of a house, she does not know if her body would be acceptable to him, apologizing for having suggested that. Our boy is sure he won't have any problems with her. He remarks that, besides her being cute, he likes her personality. He hates seeing her in such a state and would be devastated if he lost her. Having the certainty that I would support her at any necessary moment. Sakura looks radiant with these statements. She gets up to say something to our friend, saying that she is very happy to hear all of this. A tear runs down her cheek. She says she has thought of him since his birth, and now she can see him there beside her. Our guy is baffled to learn that Sakura thinks of him this way. At the same time, he feels ashamed for having seen her only as a house all his life, but now he can see her and feel her. Our guy gently brings his hand to the girl's face, saying that they can finally be together now. He approaches. Our protagonist gives Sakura a kiss, which she passively receives. Moments later, the inevitable happens. Sakura ends up receiving all the love from our boy, questioning if she is still well. She only states that she is happy. The house quickly returns to its best condition, but our boy is still not happy, plans to move on. And so he continues on his endeavor. The house keeps fixing itself as time goes by. And Sakura keeps enjoying time after the incident. Sakura rests the boy's head on her lap. Upon waking, our protagonist questions how this happened and why their house now has a second floor. Sakura turns to him, commenting that he pumped a lot of magical energy into her. And now she believes she got pregnant. Our guy is surprised, but not too much. It only questions how this relates to the appearance of a second floor. She explains that, as a spirit of the house, her children are also houses. And, since it received a lot of magical power from him, it became saturated, and the excess formed a new part of the construction. He finally seems to have understood that, questioning whether more would be added if he continued to yield his magical power. She confirms, and our young man seems to hope to have a big city soon. A week after becoming aware, how did it get so big? After Sakura and Daichai merged, he got the second floor of the house. After going down to the first floor, Daichai was surprised to see him. It was simply huge, and the young man was delighted. He thought it was a 3-bedroom apartment, and he even had furniture here. He told Sakura it was unbelievable, but she blushed and said she didn't do anything. It's all because of the energy he gave her. It's because she was overflowing with energy that the first floor appeared. Daichai didn't think he'd done anything big and offered to come back. After he went up, he said it was more cozy here than down there. Her attention was drawn to a small shed in the garden, and he assumed that one of them had come into existence that very night. He noticed that many things have appeared since the refueling of energy. Sakura thought it looked empty and suggested renting. Daichai thought of becoming a landlord. It might work if you find people to settle in here. Sakura was glad he thought the same way she did. She wanted to make the place more crowded too. But she asked the owner to stay on the second floor with her. She didn't want him to go anywhere. But the guy wasn't planning on moving. He felt very comfortable in this part of the house because of the bedroom and the furniture here. His house could keep growing, but this is where his real home was. He didn't want to think differently, and Sakura said it was glorious. The hero asked if she was really worried about it. The girl was worried that if he saw the new building, he'd decide he didn't want it anymore, and then move there. Daichai said cleverly if he really thought that, then he will do everything to expand the place as much as he can. Sakura happily said that she will do as her master wishes. The guy thought about what it looked like she wouldn't lose to him. You both have the right to choose and be chosen. Sitting next to the hero, Sakura said that's why she would do her best to make the master choose her. But he wasn't moving, so he asked her to stop thinking about those things. Daikai offered her breakfast, and she said yes. That's how a week went by. Your house ended up on top of a skyscraper, and the guy asked in shock, how is that possible? He thought about the fact that the house won 7 more floors in just a week. But he hadn't done any of that. Life with Sakura passed slowly and calmly. They ate, woke up, slept and walked. But he never visited her secret rooms in a week. At most they slept side by side. Sakura smiled and told her master that her magic was very strong. She was still overloaded, and apparently he transmits energy to her, even when they're next to each other. It means even if they slept next to each other, the house would keep growing. Daichai thought of how this was the easiest and most exciting way to make a new building for himself. He didn't think the growth of his home would cause a problem. The main thing was to find out where the new floors would go. And looking down the balcony, the hero was surprised that his house was now huge. The only thing that bothered him was that they were here, and nobody was taking care of the lower floors. Sakura smiled and told Daichai that the golems would take care of all the problems. The hero thought to himself that she was right. The shocked princess who came back looked at the house. She couldn't understand what the hell had happened, and since there was such an extension. She noticed that the guy's house was on top. The princess called them to see if anyone was home, and Daikai noticed that the princess had come to visit. Sakura asked the owner if he would find her. In this case she asked to wear something. Looking around, he saw the elevator and asked when she had time to do it. Sakura smiled and said that with magic anything is possible. She apologized and said she couldn't go with him because she had to make dinner. The hero thought magic was useful again. He was even a little intimidated by how much the house had grown. It did bother him to climb the second floor with his own feet. But for the other 5, he'd have to use the elevator. Once downstairs, Daichai was welcomed by the princess. He said hello and asked how the girl was, realizing she was nervous. The princess breathed a sigh of relief, as she had already thought she was lost and had come to the wrong place. The hero said she'd lost a lot of things. He and Sakura did some repairs while she was away. The princess was trying to finish all her business in DC and get here faster. She proudly announced she hadn't slept in 2 days. Daichai didn't think much about the fact that this was a good thing. When she looked closely, she noticed the bags under her eyes. She reminded him of herself before he came into this world. He was always up at night to finish it all before the deadline. She came here for a reason. So she asked him to accept something and put a heavy bag of coins on the floor. In the bag there were 1,000,000 silver coins. Daichai said he didn't need the money. But she wasn't okay with it. It was a thank you from all the residents. But the guy didn't understand what to thank him for. Since he settled here, their environment has been filled with magical energy. Thanks to him, his animals and vegetation were blooming like never before. In addition, the materials obtained for the animals became more gentle and of higher quality. In other words, he does practically nothing, lives for himself, occasionally uses magical energy. And they thank you for that. That's why they offered him a silver bag. To thank you for helping your kingdom thrive. The hero smiled and agreed to accept them. He thought about this girl not knowing how to lose. He said he'd take care of the money and asked Golem to throw the bag in the house. The princess remembered the incident before and was alarmed, saying they could have done it without the golem. She couldn't forget that incident. There were new golems in a row in front of her, and she asked the hero what they were. She was shocked by the room in front of her that was overflowing with golems. Daikai told her that he turned the first floor into a storage area for the golems. One of the golems came alive and opened his eyes. The princess looked at him scared and thought it was happening again. She asked Daikai if he was sure, since he already abused her last time. The guy asked her not to dare say that, and made sure he wouldn't do anything to her. The princess wanted to say something else, but I wasn't sure. After looking at all the golems that had come to life, she asked if he would take over their city. She was shocked that he needed all those golems just for defense. But Deke didn't understand what kind of acquisition she was talking about. Having an imagination was good, but he hadn't planned such a thing. He made sure he definitely wouldn't do that. He smiled and said he was satisfied with his house and garden beside her. The princess exhaled a sigh of relief and said she was happy to hear it. And even if I called them golems, they were still simple apple trees. He asked her to look, because she shouldn't be afraid of a normal apple tree. The golem lowered his gaze, and the hero told her that she made him sad. The princess felt bad and apologized. She jumped to conclusions as usual. Deikai mentioned she hadn't slept in 2 days and asked Golem to deal with it. Except for an apple from the golem, the guy threw it at the girl, saying it was a delivery fee. After picking up the apple, the princess could feel that this apple was overflowing with magical energy. The hero said it would help with sleep deprivation. She agreed with him and said she would definitely help her and make her feel better. The princess asked if he was really giving it to her. Deikai smiled when she remembered what she said about her not feeling well. She'd feel better if she ate an apple. The princess was flattered, but I didn't know how to thank the hero. But the guy exhaled and said he didn't have to pay for anything and asked her to eat. The girl agreed and said she had to go, saying goodbye. The hero noticed she makes a lot of noise when she comes here. They had already had many people visit them, though not only them. There were wolves and dragons here too. Deikai decided to find people who wanted to settle down here. But for the people here, the shape of your house was strange. And even the princess was surprised when she saw it. He had a super idea and decided to ask Sakura about it. Sakura suggested that they could change if they came together. The hero was thrilled that such a thing was possible. The house began to change shape, and the exterior was back to its original appearance. Deikai was thrilled that his old home was back. Sakura also thought the shape of the house was convenient. Your house looked like before, but it wasn't that simple. He had hidden all the other floors underground. The first 5 floors are warehouses, and the 6th floor was full of golems. He keeps the golems at the lower level, but that makes them less functional. He created a unique system where they can instantly rise to the surface. Now it's like a secret base with cool hatches and stuff. Now he seemed pretty normal to the people of this world. Sakura smiled. She was glad that, in this case, people would consider this place favorable for housing. The guys saw Hesja's silhouette and asked to see Sakura, who had come to see them. The hero greeted Hesja, realizing that she had changed a little since her last meeting. The girl said it was a disguise, and she dyed her hair and wore makeup. That white hair made her more noticeable, which made it harder to travel. So before they left, the charges dyed them. Deikai understood and said he had good friends. The girl held the cane harder in her hand. She looked down and said she couldn't see the point of hiding anymore. She looked the way she should. The boy suggested that if she didn't need it anymore, it meant she had found a safe place to settle down. Hesja agreed with him. It all started to get dark before the hero's eyes. Without realizing what was going on, he rubbed his eyes. His clothes reminded him of a burial kimono. Hesja asked what was wrong, and the guy thought these clothes were similar to the ones he had seen before. It was used when a family member died. The girl filled her cheeks and said they were her best clothes. Deikai felt ashamed and apologized because he didn't mean anything bad, but it's possible he wasn't wrong. She used it when she had to make a life or death decision. Deikai smiled while thinking about what kind of decision that Crumb was talking about. She decided to say hello and also thank you for the apple. The hero thought so, because all the people came to him to get rid of debts that nobody liked. So Hesja took a scroll and opened it. The girl opened the scroll, and the hero looked with surprise at the scroll, which turned out to be a map. Hesja confirmed and said it was a simplified map of the world. Prussia is here if you go this way. She pointed her finger at the castle T. He will find the city of the holy knights, followed by the land of the half-humans. There are many cities and countries in this world. She gathered information about all countries especially for him. She suggested to the hero that she could tell us everything in more detail. The hero wondered what he knew about this world. In fact, he knew almost nothing about this world, had never left the house before, so many things in this world were still new to him. But if she offered you information, he would. He bowed before Hestya and asked her to instruct him. She was a little embarrassed, but with a serious look she agreed. Sakura said she'd stay with them on this case and asked to teach Hestya a good lesson. Deikai looked at the map and asked where his house was. The girl pointed to the edge of the forest and said she was here. It was also called Evil Forest or Temptation Forest. West of here is a valley where the dragons lived. The hero wondered and realized why so many times they passed by. Suddenly there was a noise from behind, and from the stones began to gather a kind of creature that looked like a golem. The hero was angry because as soon as they started, they were interrupted. Hestya wasn't surprised by that. This forest housed many high-quality magical stones. Prussia used them to make excellent items full of magic, but sometimes these stones combine and become golems. They were about to flee when the boy remembered that he had left the map where the golem was already. In addition, due to the fusion of multiple amounts of magic, they had regeneration. They were practically invulnerable for everything. Deikai wondered if he was really so strong and asked how to defeat him. If they had materials to use, they could be destroyed. She took a brilliant large scale and showed it to the hero. It was the dragon scale he had recently killed. It was the scale of a strong dragon, and Hestya said if he played at the golem, he'd be destroyed. The hero said if he had the right stuff they would win, and decided to test it by swinging on the golem. Throwing scales at the golem, he collapsed. The hero was surprised that this was true, but he didn't understand why the scales exploded. He must have exaggerated the magic energy. Then the scales became a weapon of mass destruction. Hestya said that even this golem could not regenerate after so much damage. The hero thought he should be more careful in the future if he played scales. He heard Hestya's stomach roaring and asked if she was hungry. Deikai pulled an apple out of a tree and held it for the girl. He said it would be good for a snack, and Hestya thanked me. When she started biting the apple, the hero thought she looked like a small animal while eating. Eska said it was getting dark and she should come back. She asked if she could come see you tomorrow. The hero smiled and waved at her. He said she could come here whenever she wanted. There was a lot of sadness in her eyes and she thanked him. Around the spiky volcano, dragons flew furiously. One of them roared to the queen. Why was she with this guy and not attacked him? He said they were wasting their time. The dragon that was near Hestya told her that the lower dragons would fly towards her death if she did not make a decision. It was his duty as king. But Hestya understood perfectly and said he needed another day. She asked to wait another day and then reappeared in the hero's garden. Deikai noticed. He asked me to wait for her and said he was picking apples. He asked the golems to finish the job, and they approached the girl. The boy apologized for waiting. Hestya gave him the staff of the Dragon King, which was with a cool cape. Deikai wondered why she was giving it all to him like this. He wondered if she wanted to give it to him, since it looked expensive. She smiled a little bit and said everything was fine. Hestya was sure he could use it, and then the guy thanked her. Deikai took the bat in his hands and put his cloak. He smiled and said the cover was very comfortable and nice. Hestya said a lot of people here dress like that, and these people acted like a catalyst. He always used his imagination and couldn't believe this team was so necessary. Hestya thought and said he could settle things like a gun. She smiled and said it was a joke. The hero thought he'd never seen her make a joke before, so she had a playful side. Hestya said the magic of imagination was very useful, but not very effective. The guy also said that when he used magic, he got very hungry and got tired quickly, so it was recommended to use a magic key, but the hero understood nothing. Hestya explained that he could fix a word with his team that would be responsible for a certain kind of magic. It reduces the tension in the brain, and asked him to take a look. She looked at your cane and commanded the staff in front of him to burn. Immediately the flames fell on her. Daichai was shocked and said it was cool. She said he could do that too. She could also order it to explode. Then there was an explosion and the staff exploded. She asked me to invent his word and decide what magic would be attributed to her. It was too easy, and the magical energy consumption would be correspondingly lower. Daichai noticed this and compared it to the shortcut keys in his head. Adjusting the sleeve on his arm, the guy decided to try. He thought about what he would do first and decided to start. Daichai shook his staff on the apple tree and shouted at the wooden golem. In the same second, the tree became a golem. Hestia smiled and hit him. She called him amazing because he succeeded in just one attempt. But with just one golem, he didn't know how much his magic energy had diminished. He decided to try again. He made 5 more of those golems. The hero was delighted and said it all worked out. Besides, he wasn't tired, and more importantly, he wasn't even hungry. He turned to Hestia and said this magic key was incredible. But the girl, unfortunately, put her hand on her head, and the kid thought he screwed up somewhere. But that was because it was the first time she saw such a person who would use such a thing so easily. Even when he invented words, the team consumed energy, so she suggested that he be more careful. The hero understood and smiled, saying it was incredible. He thanked Hestia. The girl smiled and said he was worthy of the team. Sakura came to them and called them both. She brought a tray of cakes and tea, offering them a snack. Hestia thanked me and took the tea. When she touched the mug, she noticed the tea was cold, and Sakura said with a smile that it was iced tea. After you taste, the girl said it was bitter, but very tasty. Sakura gave him a tray and said there was candy. The hero was amazed at the way Hestia was eating. She thanked Sakura and said it was delicious. The girl was happy to hear that. Sakura said she would leave again and asked the host not to exaggerate. She said goodbye to Hestia. Dejai said if Hestia left, he could keep practicing alone, but the girl said she'd keep him company. After a time of practice, the guy said he was tired and decided to make one last trace. He created big muscle golems. It was muscle evolution. The hero noticed that the combination of trees in one was doing wonders. He'd like to change the shape a little more, but that's enough for now. Hestia said it was amazing the first day. He smiled and said it was all because he had a good teacher. It was getting dark, and the boy asked if Hestia would come home alone. Hestia said she would walk alone and not live far. In that case, Dejai said goodbye to her. Hestia smiled thinking they had fun, but as time was coming to an end, she said goodbye to the hero. Dejai didn't understand what she meant and wanted to ask what her goodbye meant. But Hestia was long gone. He didn't think she'd be here any time soon. That night, all the dragons gathered on the rocks in their valley. The dragon who accompanied the queen cried out to others and asked to be heard. He cried out that tomorrow Hestia, king of the white flame, would fight in the morning. The dragons were on alert and were ordered to prepare for war. Hestia looked at the dragons in silence. The dragons were excited because they had waited a long time for this hour. They were sure this brat wouldn't even know what killed him. They doubted whether they really needed a huge numerical advantage to deal with such a small man. The dragon cried out that everyone would leave tomorrow to see the king fight the brat. Hestia looked sadly at the dragons. She couldn't understand how she managed to rule idiots like them. The girl was surprised at herself. She thought these dragons were superficial, but there was nothing that could be done. She looked at the dragon behind her, thinking he had lived for over 100 years. If it weren't for his ability to think so critically, he would have been killed a long time ago. He was her right-hand man, but Hestia was responsible for the charges and thought she should help them. The dragon behind her apologized and suggested that she use this time to prepare for battle. The girl took her clothes off. It's been so long since she took her last magical form. So instead of the girl, a huge armored dragon appeared in the sky. She thought of the hero who smiled at her so sincerely. Hestia told me everything he needed to know about this world and about magic. She never met an opponent she needed to fight with full force. And she was waiting for this battle, even if it meant she'd never see this place again. While on top of the house, Sakura and Daichai looked at the wonderful view they had. Daichai thought it was the same valley as the dragon Hestia had spoken of. but the valley itself looked just a bunch of pointed stones. When the house assumed the appearance of a tower, you could see absolutely everything in his neighborhood. Sakura was madly happy to spend such a wonderful morning with her master. Thanks to the magic keys, he wasn't losing much energy and waking up early. He was worried about Hestia, if she'd come home safely. He remembered the words she said when he said goodbye to him. Suddenly, the boy noticed a whole cloud of dragons flying at them. It was a whole horde of them. But the huge white dragon that was in the dragon's head was something he had never seen before. Sakura said she saw hostility in their eyes. But apparently they were just passing through. Sakura suggested going down, otherwise they could have hit with air pressure. Dechai agreed with her. It still took a while to get to the first floor. The hero noticed that they were very close. The dragon prepared to attack, for which Dechai was shocked. He couldn't understand why they were attacking. The white dragon knocked towards the side of the house. Dechai looked at the house and thought about Sakura being there. He saw Sakura after him and asked if she was okay. Sakura said the structure of the house wasn't damaged, only the wall was a little charred, but otherwise everything was fine. The dragon spoke to the inhabitants of the house. The dragon presented himself as the king of the Dragon Valley and asked to fight him. If they refused, he said he'd burn the earth with his white flames. The trees near the house were covered with dragon flames. The hero went out to the dragon and said he had burned his house. In that case he was ready to fight him. It was your house, and he promised to do anything to protect you. Dechai turned to Sakura and reached out to her. He asked to begin his full synchronization. Meanwhile, he uses the magic key. The guy shook his baton and used the magic key to the full power of the armor. The trees began to create a huge golem that was right in front of the dragon. At the conclusion of the transformation, his eyes lit up with light. In the end, Sakura and Dechai entered Golem's wooden armor. It was his king's way. Dechai learned to combine 100 golems thanks to the magic key, and thanks to his synchronization with Sakura, he could see through the top of the armor. What he did before was just child's play. But this dragon was still just huge. This armor has reached a height of 10 meters at most. But the dragon was all 30 meters in it. They also had a numerical advantage and could also fly. Sakura told her master that she would protect the house with her magic and asked him to fight with full force. The hero smiled at her and thought of the fact that he and Sakura are now one. So protecting the house remains your priority. He screamed about how this was his home. And it was the only place he could live happily, and he couldn't let some idiot out of the Dragon Valley get him out. Controlling the armor, the huge golem found the real attack. The dragon calls white prepared for defense. The dragon looked at the hero inside the golem and asked him to attack. There was sudden news in the kingdom of Prussia. The castle doors opened and a man shouted that he had a message from the recon team. The Dragon King was seen in the west of the dark forest. The scouts also claimed to have seen their white flames. He was also accompanied by an army of dragons. If they attack the city, it will be destroyed. The scouts also reported that the Ludowolf tribe had also fled. The man shouted to the others to sound the alarm and announce evacuation, but people did not understand where to run because there was no escape from the Dragon King. They decided everything was bad and the city was doomed, so a voice ordered everyone to calm down. It was the princess who came to court. She said it wasn't time to panic. He asked the messenger how many dragons there were. He replied to the princess that there were at least 50 dragons. At the moment, they were flying over the dark forest. In addition, part of the forest had already become charred shrubs. The princess thought for a moment and realized what the Dragon King was. A dragon that was a legend thing. There were legends where he burned down an entire country. She knew he was asleep. But now they were seeing things with their own eyes. The princess turned to the Captain Knight and ordered him to begin the evacuation. She asked him to save as many people as he could. The knight said he would surely inform his warriors, but it would take them at least a day to get here. The princess thought for a moment, so he went to the gun stand and took a bat from there. In that case, she herself was ready to fight the dragon. The knight was shocked. But the girl wanted to do something for this town. The knight wanted to let you object. But she understood him perfectly. The princess said she knew she wouldn't win the battle. She was sacrificing her life. But she smiled and said if she tried her best, she could hold him. At times like this, she realized she was happy to be a princess. Instead of running, she wanted to protect her people. The girl blushed and pulled the short skirt between her legs, recomposing and squeezing the staff. She said she was happy to give her life for her people. The knight and the other gifts looked at the princess in shock. She turned to them and said she was leaving. She asked to see your battle. The people of the castle wanted to stop her, but the princess had already managed to use teleportation. She went straight to Lem, noting the teleportation was perfect. In that case, she began to care for the Dragon King. Up in the sky, she saw a dragon throwing up white flames. And she couldn't believe it. Right in front of her was a big golem that overshadowed her. The princess looked at King Golem in shock. She couldn't understand what kind of creature was capable of blocking the dragon's flame. Deikai looked at the princess in shock, without understanding what she was doing here. The princess recognized the voice of the hero and was surprised. Gollum looked at the dragon and shouted at him that he burned his garden. He also burned the arms of his wonderful wooden armor. The hero was furious and sent the dragon away. He said he wouldn't let you keep destroying his house. Deikai summoned the rest of the golems that were at home in the vault. All 5 floors with golems began to wake up and begin to move. Deikai smiled and thought about how great an idea it was to fill the whole empty space of the house with golems. And now he hoped everything would be okay, since he hadn't tested a few things. He ordered the golems to assume full defense mode. Absolutely all golems immediately began to run into the armor of the hero from all sides. They wrapped his armor in Golem's body. This technique the hero called a real defense. Deikai shouted at the reptile to attack and told him he would pay for his garden. It was time to strike back. The battle with the Dragon King was beginning to go into full swing, and the guy yelled at him that they would show him everything they could do. At first, he thought of bringing the dragon to the ground. The hero looked at Sakura and asked if everything was all right. She just said the fire didn't damage the structure of the house, so everything was fine. In this case, the guy said they would. The traps began to appear around the dragon from all sides, and Sakura said the target was captured. A trap was set on the flying strangers, and arrows fell on the dragons from all sides. The dragon thought of ducking and not burning those bullets. But when he dodged it, he noticed they were revealing themselves. But even in this position, the dragon was able to dodge, which the hero noticed. In that case, he tried another technique and tore the trunk off a tree. Pointing, he threw the log at the enemy like a spear, and the tree opened in flight. The dragon thought he had another obstacle in front of him, and decided to burn it. He applied the dragon's breath. Deikai thought it was very convenient for the dragon, because he could burn everything in his way and hover in front of them. But he thought how weak the dragon was to land and fight like a man. Hero Golem used a wooden shield. But as soon as the shield collided with the dragon's flames, it immediately broke. The guy said this shield was made of magic apple wood and broke after a single blow. The rest of the dragons flew near the king and cried out that the lord was winning. The dragons laughed and observed that the battle was very good. They even regretted it was about to end. The dragon looked at the hero and said he is the present Dragon King and this is his total power. With those words, the dragon prepared his next attack. Guy noticed he was going to spit fire again. And if that happened, everything in the neighborhood would be burned. Deikai got angry and asked the dragon not to think about giving up so easily. The hero turned to Sakura and told him that they will use everything they have. Sakura agreed with him, and the dragon thought to himself that this was the end. Focusing on your attack, the dragon used the white flames of the Dragon King. King Golem laid his hands on the ground and went to all the trees they had left. He ordered them to grow up and unite. Then a huge tree was created above it, which took the blow of the dragon. The land in the neighborhood shook, and everything began to crumble by the force of this coup. This was the climax of the battle with the Dragon King. The hero noticed that the top of the tree was beginning to be sizzled, and said they needed more magic energy. Dakai worked as hard as he could, and the tree began to grow slowly. After a while, the seedling regained its crown. The dragon was surprised that the tree began to grow. He didn't understand how he was growing through his flames, and the hero yelled at him to get out. Exploding through the dragon's flames, the branches around him began to squeeze his entire body. Dakai said everything was fine, and the dragon was caught. But then the guy noticed that the stick Hestia gave him was broken. He thought about the fact that he left a lot of energy in her. The dragon shouted with rage that he would not lose to him. With those words, the dragon used his flame directly on the tree that held him. Hestia wasn't getting anything, and she realized she was exhausted. The guy noticed this dragon was the king of all dragons. He was much stronger than any other dragon, but now has asked permission to demonstrate what this armor could do. Lifting the leg of the huge golem, he said it was simply incredible power. It was the power of hundreds of apple trees, but that wasn't all. It was also the magic that overflowed in his house, and flowed in every cell of this armor. The king of Golem walked to the trees that surrounded the dragon and wrapped his arms around them. He used all his maximum power, and cried out that now was definitely the end. Taking the roots off the ground that were restricting the dragon, he dragged them to the ground using a real detour. The branches of the tree, along with the dragon, fell to the ground. The princess looked in shock at the dragon who was defeated. The rest of the dragon pack watched quietly. Dakai said that all the things he mentioned were what determined this victory. It was his incredible strength. The hero looked at the dragon who fell with the branches on the floor. He thought of the fact that they had succeeded and the dragon had finally fallen. Sakura said in tears that the master was incredible, he was the best. The shocked princess only saw how the golem was headed for the dragon. Surprised at herself, she didn't understand why she was crying. The girl didn't realize what had happened. The legendary white flame dragon had been defeated. There's never been a person who could defeat her. But now it's happening right in front of her. The princess thought she was a witch after all, and had practiced magic art all his life to become the best at it. She summoned him to make Prussia stronger for her to prosper. A house appeared in the woods and a man, the owner of that house. She held the bat in her hand, and no one denied her help to the country. She was really grateful to him, remembering her first date. But she was disappointed, because if he were here, it was impossible to call her stronger. The girl in tears thought she had some feeling, and she felt it when she saw her strength. The princess smiled and blushed, and said how nice he was. After leaving the golem, the heroes examined the dragon. The guy looked at the environment and said the place was ruined again. Dakai looked at the house. I said I was sorry I didn't keep you safe. The dragon pack was still circulating over the house, and Sakura asked the hero if he would plant more apple trees. The hero was totally in agreement with him. After all, they need protection. He still didn't understand why the other dragons didn't attack. The dragons only looked at Dakai and noticed that he was looking at them. They still didn't believe what that brat had done. Still, they didn't attack and decided to fly away, and the heroes took care of them. The guy smiled and said there was one less problem now. He didn't have enough magic energy to fight everyone now. The hero decided to approach the dragon lying on the ground. Looking at the Dragon King immobilized, he wondered what he should do with him. But then the creature's eyes opened, and he asked me to kill him. Because he was trapped, and the other dragons had retreated. It also drained all its reserves of magical energy, and asked to finish the job quietly. The hero looked at his enemy. Dakai didn't understand why he wanted to kill him, and the dragon wondered. The guy suggested that he imagine what would happen if he killed him. He would have another huge dragon carcass in his backyard again, which would cause him trouble. The Dragon King said it could be fixed and that it could shrink. With these words, the dragon shone with light. The light was so bright that it blinded the hero, that covered his eyes. After the dragon's transformation, He saw Hestia in front of him and was stunned. In shock, Dacai looked at the girl without clothes. Hestia looked down and admitted that she was Hestia Redona. She was the white flame of dragons, that is, her queen. But now she was a former queen. Putting his hand on her face, the hero thought she'd be more talkative than that winged brat, and he also thought that the Dragon King could still defeat him. And then the girl fell on her back. Hestia laid down on the ground and said she should have the energy for the final attack, and asked to kill her and end this fight. Dacai still didn't understand why I should kill her. Apart from the cover, he asked why they attacked. Covering the surprise girl, he asked her to answer. The hero said if they worked it out now, no one would have to die. After a little silence, Hestia admitted that she had fought for the good of the other dragons. Hestia admitted that he was the strongest she ever fought, and that she needed to prove it to the other dragons. The hero looked at her questioning. I don't know what she meant. Still agreeing with her words, he sat on the rock in front of Hestia. Sakura also sat down. The boy realized that she had fought for the good of her relatives, and asked how it had been, and if she had been able to prove to them what was needed. Hestia agreed with him and said that the dragons realized that if they did, they would definitely die. But something had to be done to make them believe. The girl leaned over the hero and asked him to take her head. In case anyone dares oppose him, he showed them. Hestia approached and bowed her head, but immediately received a fist in his head. The shocked girl held her head, on which a rooster had already formed, and asked what the hell was going on. Dacai looked at Hestia hard, and said she was being punished. Hestia's tears grew and she said it hurt, but the guy had to teach her a lesson. He admitted it would be weird if the kick was weak. But the hero smiled and said he forgives her, so everything will be all right now. The girl looked at the guy by surprise. Taking the cloak that had fallen from Hestia, he said there was nothing he could do about it, and she had her reasons to do it. But with a bump on her head, she paid for his favorite garden. The guy put the cover on the girl again, and the girl said he shouldn't be so nice to her. But Dacai smiled and said if you needed help, you could ask him. After all, now they have enough time to talk. Hestia thought of his words and did not understand what he meant. All he wanted to say was that she should tell him all her problems. After all, it's normal for neighbors, especially if they are good friends. The hero said if she had any problems, he'd help her. And if he needed help, she'd try to return the favor. He didn't have that many neighbors, so it would be good for them to be together. The hero was sure if she asked, they'd talk to her. Even if he couldn't help, he could always hear her. Dacai thought about the fact that they were talking here, and it would be necessary to finally clean up now. Hestia looked at the guy and smiled a little. A blush appeared on the girl's cheeks, and she said they would clean up the mess. Sakura looked at the host and asked if she could make tea. The guy said it sounded good, and the girl's throat was just dry by fire. Meanwhile, the princess looked at the body of the dragon, which had disappeared. But she only saw how he was defeated, which means she had to inform the people. After that she used the teleporter. This time the truth remains in the shadows for her. The girl smiled and of course she agreed. That very night, the heroes worked hard to get everything in order. Daichi wiped the sweat off his forehead and said getting back to normal would be a little difficult. Hestia looked at the hero and asked if everything was okay. She noticed that he had broken his team, and the hero said he had ruined it during the battle. The girl said she worked really hard to raise it, and did break it even when she hit the hammer. Daichi was surprised and asked how she did it. Hestia had a license to create magic weapons, and the hero was surprised that it was necessary here too. It can be useful for making money while traveling. She had made a good name as a master in arms, and the hero was surprised that she saw so much. The girl asked if he needed a bat, and the hero said he could use the magic keys without one. If he hadn't summoned so many golems, then the outcome of the battle would have been different. Taking the team to herself, the girl said she could fix it. Looking carefully at the crack, she thought she could handle it in a day, just needing some materials from her tail. Daiichi asked by surprise if she was serious, assuming it was her bones. He wasn't sure if it was all right, but the girl said swings or claws would fit as they would still grow. He also told her to help the neighbors, so she decided to help him. Daiichi thanked Hestia and said he wouldn't fix it. But the girl said if it was just the stuff, he would have done it without her. The girl said that's still in the world, and there are 6 more Dragon Kings. The boy wanted to say something to Hestia, but then he decided it wasn't important and thanked her for her help. He asked her to tell you if she needed anything. Hestia lowered his eyes, and I wanted to say something else to Daiichi. Worried, she said she had nowhere to live now. The hero asked about the Valley of Dragons, and the girl said that because of that loss, the road was near her. The dragons only followed the strongest, and the boy thought they had a hierarchy. Hestia said if she went back there, they'd tear her to pieces, and the hero said it was very hard. The girl said if he couldn't help her, she'd settle down somewhere in the woods. But since it was dangerous in the neighborhood, she couldn't sleep. But the hero didn't think about the fact that there were guys here who could beat her. He was right. But the girl was scared because if she fought with someone, she'd destroy everything around her. She wanted to avoid it. Daiichi thought about why it seemed so dangerous. In that case, Hestia asked where she could stay. Besides, she'd make money. The guy thought of her words and asked Sakura for help. In fact, he didn't even see the city here like he was giving a hint. The girl smiled and said the hero could calm her down right here. Daiichi noticed that she was reading her mind, but the girl smiled and said she thought it would be nice. Sakura said Daiichi is your master and following your decision is your duty. The hero smiled at her and thanked her for everything. But something else was still bothering him. He asked Sakura if Hestia had a problem with the magic in which these lands are rich. But the girl just smiled and said Hestia was so strong that there was no reason to answer that question. Because everything was clear. In that case, it was settled. Reaching out to Hestia, the guy said she could live here. Where the girl was shocked. She was embarrassed and asked if everything was okay. But the hero had no doubt about it. Daiichi said that as owner of the house, he accepted. Even the house itself was fine with it, so she was welcome here. She could also use that guest house that looked normal. Hestia hesitated, not knowing what to answer. Stretching out her hand, the girl smiled and thanked her for everything, accepting her offer. Hestia and Daiichi shook hands. So they had their first tenant. Suddenly a princess ran from behind and apologized. The surprised guy looked at the girl who was wearing a fancy dress. He noticed it was Dania who asked for a moment. She had a big request for them because it was an emergency. She needed him to go with her to Prussia now. The princess asked the hero to go to Prussia with her. But the hero didn't understand why she needed to go to the kingdom with her. The princess replied that he was the winner of the Dragon King, and ordinary people would like to see the hero. Then he was invited to the castle. Daiichi realized why the girl was dressed like that. But since she was in the royal family, she had to look official. The hero didn't understand what he was doing there, and he thought he had done nothing to gain their gratitude. But the princess insisted he was the hero, and his battle was visible from the castle itself. Since then, people have seen him as the winner. The boy looked at Hestia and said he was only defending his home. The princess said it was because of this that her kingdom had not yet been burned, so they would like to thank you. Daiichi didn't know what to do, and he honestly said he didn't want to go anywhere. Excuse me, the guy said he was too lazy to go anywhere, especially because it was a very difficult day. But the princess wasn't so sure about that. She saw that the hero had a lot of energy, and it would actually be better if he came tired and without her. With her, he seemed intimidating. Speaking to the guy, the princess said she wouldn't be long. He was only in the castle for a while, and then he continued to live a quiet life. After all, the people were very scared, and they expected something terrible to happen if he didn't come. The hero presented this scary painting and asked them to dismiss it. Returning to Sakura, Daiichi said he would leave and not come until dinner. The princess thanked you from her heart. She was sure Daiichi would agree. In that case, Hestia asked to go with the hero. and he said he needed to buy something for the team. The shocked princess looked at the girl and asked who she was, feeling great power from her. The princess blushed and said she could feel tremendous energy from her, assuming she was his daughter, but the hero said she was living here and wasn't his daughter. The guy turned to Sakura and called her Cherry and said he'd be back soon. Daikai asked the princess to get it over with, and she said she'd teleport them. The guy said the teleportation spell was cool, and the princess, proud of herself, said it was her specialty. She turned to the great magic and asked him to allow her to shorten a great distance using her magical energy. And then the teleportation happened. Immediately Daiki, along with the princess, he met on the main balcony of Prussia. The guy looked from the balcony and saw a lot of people looking at them by surprise. There was a kind of silence, after which the hall of the kingdom exploded, and the inhabitants began to shout that their savior had arrived. They were very happy that the hero was already here. Daikai pointed his finger at them and asked the princess what kind of people they were. The girl smiled and said they were rich nobles or better adventurers, and they had come here to welcome him. But the guy didn't understand what it was for, and the girl said the Dragon King was a few miles from his kingdom. Many people had already resigned to imminent death. Daikai looked at Hestia, who was beside him, and thought of the fact that people didn't even know she had reached the castle. But the girl calmly turned to the young man and said she had gone to buy things for the staff. The boy asked her to hurry. After the girl left, the princess asked the surprise hero if he could let her go alone. His guards were good, but the city was still dangerous. The hero imagined her becoming a dragon and said she was cool. He thought she'd be even more dangerous than the city. In that case, the princess asked him to approach. She pointed to where the knight was and asked him to begin the ceremony. For starters, there was a little formal meeting right here. She wanted to introduce you to the captain of the night magicians. The knight bowed to the hero and said he was happy to meet him. He performed as Okudo, the captain of the local wizard knights. Daikai returned after that shook hands. Feeling the guy's strong handshake, the knight's face changed. Daikai turned to the princess and said her friend was no good, or it was customary to shake hands like that here. But the girl smiled and said he seemed to have an overabundance of magical energy. The princess asked the captain if everything was all right, and he agreed with her, asking for forgiveness. The knight said that apparently he wasn't good enough to stay here and apologize, deciding to leave the ceremony. The princess decided it was time for them to start, and suggested that the guy introduce himself first. The girl turned red and said she'd like to know the name of the man who already saved her twice. Daikai looked at her by surprise and realized that he had never called her by name yet. The guy smiled and said his name was Daikai. The girl was delighted and said it was a great name that suited him as a master of the dragon's vein. She put her hand on her chest and said she'd keep that name in her heart. The princess was approached by a knight who gave her a tray with the reward of a hero. She told Daikai that they had prepared something for him as a sign of gratitude for his victory. He did a great deed, so she asked to accept this reward. The hero looked at the piece of paper that resembled a diploma and thought to himself that it took him nowhere. With a strange smile, the hero would only repeat himself about defending his home. The newspaper said he received 10 silver coins, the right to use the facilities within the kingdom, as well as the right of passage to the kingdom. But apparently, nothing bad would happen to him if he accepted. In that case, the girl smiled at Daikai and said they had finished the official part. The princess lifted her swollen dress and asked for company. People screamed and asked to show their hero. They wanted to hear a story from him, but the guy thought about how lazy he was all of a sudden. He didn't want to get tired of this nonsense anymore. Daikai scratched the back of the head and apologized, because he wasn't very good at that kind of thing, and in that case, he decided to go home. The princess asked him to slow down and didn't understand the fact that he didn't want to be the main guest at the royal dinner. The knight supported her, and he said he had the best kitchen in the world. But the hero said he was wrong, saying the best kitchen in the world was in his house, and it seemed to him that now his dinner was getting cold. The princess knew it was useless to argue with him and decided to teleport him home on this case. But the guy waived it and said he shouldn't, thinking it would be a good walk. But it was too far, and the princess thought about the fact that they could go together. But then the doors opened and Hestya came in, saying that she had returned. Daikai noticed that she had taken everything she needed, and the girl said that now she could fix her team. The boy said they were going home now, and asked Hestya if it would be okay if they walked. Hestya said that in this case she had an option. She turned to a dragon, and asked why not have the hero ride her. The knight and princess were simply shocked, for before them was the white flame dragon itself. The princess in shock asked the hero how he managed to tame the white flame dragon. Daikai cursed, thinking of how he had forgotten. That was your little carelessness. The princess was horrified by the thought of the hero wanting to destroy this city. But Daikai asked me to take my hands off gently, and he said he didn't want to destroy anything here. He turned to get Hestya's help to confirm. The dragon said they didn't intend to destroy anything. The princess was happy to hear that, and the hero waved it and said they were already late. The girl reached out and asked him to wait, saying she was saying all this in the name of the kingdom. But she also wanted to thank him personally. He told Dania she really looked like a princess now. But he didn't remember saving her, so he asked her to keep her grateful for the moment he would actually save her. The princess remained silent and smiled while watching the hero climb the dragon. Daikai confessed to Hestya that he was scared when she began to reincarnate. He wondered why she was a minor, and Hestya said it was because of the magical energy. There wasn't enough now, and the dragon's body was forming in proportion to its power. In that case, the boy put his hands on the protruding spike and said he'd hold him, then turned to the princess. And you asked her not to stay out of sight. The two guards looked in shock, and one of them said had just seen a dragon. The princess and the knight quietly escorted them with a look. It started to get dark, and the knight told the girl that they were already gone. Meanwhile, Daikai was surprised that the girl could fly with him on her back, but Hestya replied that it would be strange if she could not. The hero thought it was a beautiful sight, the flight of a white dragon against a black sky. Some people who looked up were still able to detect the creature flying at extraordinary speed. Some blamed the phenomenon for alcohol, but the fact is that the white dragon has returned to the dark forest of the Light Castle. It was also noted by a dark figure of the forest. The girl said it was her sister, and said it would be fun. Eventually, rumors began to spread in the city that a white dragon had built a nest in the castle. Everyone wondered what the hell was going on here. After flying home, Hestya reincarnated, and the boy thanked her for her help. Hestya rubbed his tired eyes and said she was tired for today. She asked permission to sleep, and the guy let her go. She thanked me and said good night. The hero was tired too, and as he walked into the house elevator, he thought about the fact that creatures also need to regenerate the magical energy. That's why Hestya was sleeping. When the doors opened, Daikai was received by Sakura and greeted him. She told the host that today was a difficult day, and she had prepared rice for him. He could have dinner, or there was another option. Sakura blushed and said something about how she could help restore her magical energy. The guy thought how handsome he was, like in the anime, and he needed to answer correctly. He smiled and said he'd eat first, because it would be a shame if her food was wasted. Sakura agreed, and said eating at his age was very important. When she ran away, she said something about cooking for now. Daichi really liked life here. All the problems were solved, and he could retire in peace. Sakura was serving tea, and she had something to offer the host. The hero didn't understand what she meant, and Sakura asked for a change of heart. She wanted Daichi to reform the house, but the guy still didn't understand anything. After seeing Hestya-chan's attacks, she thought this form was unreliable enough. The hero thought and agreed with her, because in that form the house was unstable. He asked Sakura how he could make one in this case. Had already tried to bury him on the floor. Sakura offered to use her body and magical power to the full, and the blushed guy asked what she meant. Sakura smiled, said they should synchronize first, then try to rebuild. Dakai understood her, because when they synchronized, he had to figure out how to do it. In that case, he offered to do it outside, standing in front of the house. The hero suggested she try. He put his hand on Sakura's shoulder, and the synchronization was complete. The program showed a complete model of the house. Now all that was left was to use the magical power and intuition of the hero to rebuild it. Someone had to visualize it and use magical power. For starters, the guy decided to take a little test. He decided to move the 5th floor by 5 meters, after what he imagined. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was doing well, and the building moved. Sakura was delighted. The ground moved. She complimented the master and said he was doing a great job. That's exactly what she expected from him. He had mastered this method very quickly, but the hero said he praised him too much. He didn't realize the house would be so easy to move. Sakura said that while they were synchronized, their magical power strengthened the walls, so it wasn't a problem. She smiled and said it was important to get used to. She suggested trying different variations. 10 more minutes went by like this. After that time, there was a whole house floating in the sky. It looked like a bunch of blocks that merged into one. After they broke up, there was a multifaceted, multistory cabin on the floor. Dakai looked at the house by surprise and said that magic is really incredible. The house can be rebuilt as if it were playing with blocks. Besides, he could change his mind, but he couldn't change his volume. Sakura said the master was amazing for doing all this in such a short time. He now understood how to move it, deciding to change to its shape. The shape of the building was still weak against outside influences, and he wanted to make a solid form. The apple orchard was very large, so he decided to enlarge the house. In that case, he realized what he was supposed to do. In an instant, the house became a pyramid of cheops, and Sakura was thrilled. The hero looked at the house with uncertainty, realizing that he had become a pyramid in search of the right form and security. At the top of the pyramid there were still 2 bedrooms, the dining room and the kitchen. But the hero compared the pyramid to a tomb, and he felt like he had made a mistake. But Sakura disagreed with him. In terms of security, it was the most appropriate solution. With this reinforcement, there would be no trace of Heschikan's attack. The guy scratched his head with uncertainty and said the house was really strong and suitable for defense, but he didn't want to give Sakura, his house, a rough shape. The girl looked at him by surprise and smiled her thanks. She blushed, and said it would continue to expand anyway. In time, it would reach the way he wanted it. Dakai remembered what happened before this expansion, and it turned red. Sakura smiled and asked him to take his time, since he could redo things at his leisure. Dakai smiled and agreed with her. He would keep working on his sense of design, and so his home was safe. This is how the fruits of love continued to grow. That night near the hero's house, from a small house came the sound of the metal that echoed. It was Hestia, who was hammering his staff with all his power. After taking off her glasses and inspecting the team, she decided she had finished working on it. It was the next morning when the boy left and looked at the house. As he thought, it was going nowhere. Sakura told him that the previous vision was still in his memory, and if they synchronized, they could restore it. The hero thought of doing nothing. But then Hestia came after him, and he noticed that the guy was using magic in a strange way. Noting her, Dakai wished her a good day. She said she felt a change in magical energy yesterday, but she had no idea he was using it like this. A normal person would faint if he used so much energy once. Hestia gave him the bat, and told him that he had brought him the right thing. This new team would make it easier for him to do these things. The hero was delighted to note that the new team was tougher and thicker than the previous team. Hestia said that she had carefully selected the materials and worked on it in isolation. Because of that, it's harder than before. The boy thanked Hestia from his heart. Using the magic key, it would be much easier for him to fix the shape of his home. Hestia looked at Sakura, doubting that she was right. Sakura looked away, said they'd need a possible synchronization. Once the form was assembled, it could be changed in an instant. The hero said he understood and offered to try. He suggested that Sakura synchronize with him and try to return to construction mode, and Sakura agreed with pleasure. The magic key needed a keyword to activate. He needed a proper keyword for the base form. Daichai raised his bat above him, and said the keyword would be the common tower. Looking at the house, he was happy to see that he had really changed instantly. Sakura congratulated his master, and Hestia looked at the house by surprise. She said it was amazing, and he got it right the first time. In that case, the guy suggested that Sakura continue. He used the magic key to the pyramid, and then the house took the form of a pyramid again. The hero was delighted, and he said the magic key is great. Hestia asked the team for a moment, and the guy held her. After examining him carefully, Hestia concluded that this time she managed to make a team that would not break. She kept it to her, telling Daichai he could go back. The hero smiled at her and said that this team was reliable enough. Thanks to that, he didn't feel tired, so it was very effective. The hero thought a little concerned and decided to continue. With a wave of his team, the house became Heinji Castle. After that, he used another magic key called the Celestial Tower. He screamed that he had done it, but since the house was small, it just became a miniature. In this case, he finally decided to use the guardian deity, so the house became a solid and huge golem. The hero looked at the golem and said had gone too far. He apologized to Sakura and said he was very excited. Sakura just smiled and told him not to worry about it because they could take it all back. As expected of a master, he was going too fast. If he kept up the pace, he'd be able to do it without synchronization very soon. The hero smiled and said it was all thanks to the team and thanked Hestia. Hestia was happy that she managed to do something worthwhile for him. She asked me to tell her if the team broke down again, and she would fix it. The hero agreed with her, and he said if it happened, had be sure to tell her. That's how he learned to rebuild a house efficiently. Daichai used the ability of a muscle golem, only 20 times stronger. The golems acquired the muscle bodies of men, but it was as if their faces did not match the bodies. The hero looked and realized there was something wrong here. When he was creating a large number at the same time, some details were simply lost. Behind the hero, he heard a scream from the princess who asked what it was. She said hello to Daichi and said they hadn't seen each other in a while. The hero noticed that Daichai came every time he was busy. He certainly didn't mind her coming here, and he was glad she didn't pee. The girl asked you not to worry, and said you took countermeasures. The princess talked about how mature she was, and the guy didn't understand why she was so proud of it. He asked what she wanted this time. The girl smiled and said she was here to give her land and city property. It took some time to make those documents. She asked me to use this as he would, and the guy thanked her. The girl looked at the golems and asked what was wrong with them, because they looked scary. She felt a lot of pressure as they looked at her. The hero agreed that they seemed very scary, but since he didn't want any accidents, he ordered the golems to return, after which they disappeared. The princess noticed the magic key technique, and the guy was surprised she knew that too. Of course she knew, since it's advanced magic. Even a great magician like her could only use 1 or 2 sentences. The guy thought of the fact that his armored golem was created with a magic key. The girl went down because the guy overcame her again. The hero noticed that she first comes here, and she's excited, so immediately she gets depressed. He believed she was living a rather troubled life. The princess didn't understand how he learned that and assumed he could have invented it himself. But Daichai said he was taught by a passing girl. The princess said hesitantly that once such a person existed, and it was a girl, she would like to meet her personally. But the guy said they already knew her. Meanwhile, Hestia approached them. Sweetly softened, the girl asked without opening her eyes if anyone was here. The princess was shocked to see the girl who was teaching him. She was shocked that the hero was being trained by the Dragon King. Daichai smiled and said hello to her. Upon hearing the girl's name, the princess said it couldn't be. She couldn't believe the wizard dressed in black was that high-class wizard Hestia Radon. She hasn't heard that name in a long time. And to think that the legendary wizard was just a disguise for the Dragon King of the White Flame. The hero was surprised and asked again if Hestia was really a legendary wizard. A few decades ago, an unknown magician dressed in black appeared in the Prussian Magic Association. In a few days, she managed to obtain the highest rank and then simply disappeared, leaving only her legendary writings. She used the name Hestia Radon. The hero thought the name was a little different, but Hestia said she used a fake name, but they weren't very different. The other dragons offered him a fake name, as well as black hair and clothes. The guy smiled. He wouldn't think she'd be a famous person. Hestia said if the guy was thinking about her being a legend, he was wrong. If he was in a magical association, they couldn't measure his power, as so far beyond normal that the only close post would be mythical, but still he could be much stronger. They had no way of measuring their strength, so they couldn't give him a real patent. Hestia and the princess waved at each other. All right. The hero wondered why they were suddenly talking about him, since the princess was still afraid of Hestia earlier. Recently, the princess often met people much stronger than her, and she felt she was getting used to it. So when talking to the hero, she learned to resist fear. DJ said it was certainly useful, but not very pleasant. The girl was embarrassed and wanted to answer, but the hero said he was playing with her. But she learned a lot today. She noticed it was about time she left, so she asked permission to say it. She was glad she met you both. The girl promised to work harder and become as strong as them. She hoped they'd see each other again. DJ told her that he and Sakura liked her company, so she could feel free to come here any time. But he had a condition where she didn't moisturize his garden. The princess got angry and blushed, and said that such a thing would never happen again. In that case, she should have left by now. Hestia noticed that the princess was feeling better. For a few minutes ago, she was very depressed. When the hero thought of going back to his golems, Hestia suggested that he was making golems even stranger, and she was interested in seeing. The guy thought since she was gonna look, he had to do it right. In that case, he needed to concentrate. You applied a muscle shape 20 times stronger than normal, and you noticed they were better. They had a new improved face. Hestia said it was great, so the hero started working on improving the golems before lunch. Sitting in the studio, the girl thought about the fact that even the princess had to write. She had a lot of work to do, and a lot of people panicked when she thought the city was under attack, and she would have to make a statement. At least she decided not to postpone everything. And thanks to Dacus' magical influence, his crops were growing much better than before. The girl wondered, for a moment, when they would meet the hero again, as someone knocked on the door and asked permission to perform. The princess took her sentence again and allowed her entry. The knight apologized and said it was about the fortress city's emergency forces. The princess remembered them and said they weren't needed, but she was still grateful for their support. She asked if there were any adventurers there, and the knight said yes. Most of them come back, but some stay here to look for treasures. The girl thought of the fact that they wouldn't want to come back empty-handed, since they were adventurous. The knight was in agreement with her. There were many dungeons near the fortress city. He was sure they wouldn't want to lose a week's salary. It would make sense. The princess asked if the knight remembered to warn them to stay away from the Daikai forest. The knight did what he asked. He wouldn't be surprised to find out they'd ignore that warning. The girl said it wasn't good, but Daikai shouldn't have any problems with them. The knight felt that power in himself, and there was still a certain specialty in his abilities. But he didn't think of Daikai killing the adventurers. But he also appreciated the silence. If it bothers you too much, an apology should have been prepared for him. The princess agreed with him, and thought about visiting there to apologize. She thought so much that the knight asked if she was all right. The girl apologized and asked if that was all. But the knight had something else to say. He said a delegation was coming from the fortress city. The princess was shocked, then she got up from the chair and hit the table. They wanted to find out how they managed to fight the dragon. Besides, the knight was sure they hadn't told him everything. He heard they had someone capable of finding powerful magic energy. That was impressive because the princess didn't realize that the fortress city was so familiar with magical items. And she probably knew what they wanted. The knight was also sure that the rumor about the hero had already reached them as well. If they wanted to attack Deka's house, the girl was ready to stop them if necessary. Perhaps the adventurers in delegation have been too much. She told the knight she might need his help, and the wizard knight agreed. Meanwhile, the adventurers entered the forest on purpose, laughing. One of them said he loved to go on morning hunting. One of the hunters told the boss it was smart of him to go early while the monsters were still awake. Boss said they'd be here soon. After looking at Deka's house from a distance, the boss said this place is here. He suggested that the guys prepare for tons of treasures because he thought it would be an easy win. When the adventurers and their boss arrived at the house, they laughed joyfully and decided to go to the attack. But one of the gang members felt sick and his cheeks swelled. At some point, the whole gang started throwing up, and the boss thought it was a magical disease. He found it impossible. After all, no one could be so strong. They shouldn't have had any problems. The boss pointed forward and said there was a cabin there. He suggested they hide there and regroup. But then Hestia went out to find them, and the guy sent them all down. A girl with a cane in her hands asked the boys who they were. The adventurers wondered what a child was doing here. There was an incredible magical energy around her that shone in the form of a dragon, and people couldn't understand what happened to that magical energy. Hestia assumed they were invited uninvited, and she should probably stop them. The girl thought for a moment. She pointed her finger at them and decided to give them the first warning. The adventurers didn't understand what was going on here. They stood still and couldn't move. Hestia said it was private property and there were no weapons here. With those words, she ordered magic to blow it up. A gust of wind struck the opponents and knocked them down. The boss said she used a magic key. He asked everyone to be careful because she was a high-level wizard. Hestia thought about the fact that it might have taken a lot of effort. She thought about burning them. Noting that the attack had stopped, the chief ordered his subordinates to prevent them from being taken by surprise and attacked. Suddenly a wooden figure grew up behind them, and the bald boss screamed perplexedly. Where did this strange golem come from? Hestia was hardly surprised that she was now working on her own, and decided to leave them alone. The boss shouted to his subordinates that it was a simple golem of wood and they could just cut it to pieces. But after attacking the golem, the enemy noticed he didn't have a scratch. He said his blade couldn't cut him, and he didn't understand how, since it was just wood. Realizing there was nothing they could do to him, the men shouted that they had to run away. Meanwhile, Sakura handed a towel to the hero while washing his face. After thanking her, Deikai wiped his face and heard screams outside. A voice screamed that they were trapped. The melancholy hero said the garden was very noisy today. Sakura replied that a group of looters came to them this morning, and she wanted to ask Deikai what to do about them. She also brought a stick for the hero. People haven't attacked since Dane's time, and they didn't know what they wanted either. Deikai decided to find out what they wanted and take Sakura's hand, asked if she was ready to synchronize. Deikai applied the magic key to Golem 20 of wood. Suddenly, the ground trembled, which perplexed the adventurers the most. Without noticing how it happened, they were completely surrounded by large golems. They were so scared that Sakura assumed they'd fainted. The hero thought about how he didn't use any of his real traps because he wanted to avoid her. He just wanted to talk to them. Sakura smiled and asked if Deikai was ready for breakfast. Opening the doors of the house, the hero said fortunately that they would wake up after he finished breakfast, and looked at the food table. While Sakura and Deikai began their breakfast, Hestia went to the bald boss and poked him with a stick to see if he was alive. After waking up and kneeling, the attackers apologized for what they did. Apparently, the golems were pretty intimidating, and the hero needed them to explain something to him. One of the guys started fainting again. But the guy asked, "Don't you dare make him sleep because you needed to talk." He apologized for not having resistance to magic, so it was hard for him to breathe. In that case, the hero asked who was the strongest and who could explain this situation to him. The bald boss raised his hand and said it was him. Deikai understood, assuming they are adventurers of the fortress city. They also form a group called Brightheads. They were called here to help them fight the dragon, but they did not want to return empty-handed. Sitting on his knees, the boss agreed to his words, and the hero asked how they had the idea to come here. The man said they got a mission at headquarters. She was a woman with black hair and big balls, and she made them come here. She said there'd be a lot of treasure here. The hero didn't like it and asked if they had seen treasure here somewhere or something. The boss said there were magic stones, but that's it. But he asked me to make sure they didn't touch them. They really did think anyone would be here, especially someone as powerful as him. They're sorry. Deikai was hardly surprised and asked if that was it. Looking at the guys, he didn't think they were lying to him. But it didn't look like they were really targeting him. In that case, he believed them and said he wasn't happy that they came in here without being invited and with weapons ready. Sorry. The boss said he understood everything and that to pay for his shares, he was willing to shave his head. But the hero thought of the fact that his head was already shaved. The boss yelled at the others who heard him and needed to shave their heads. In that case, they decided to do it. The hero asked them to stop and say they wouldn't mind if they shaved their heads. In all seriousness, they would make a mess, as it is very difficult to clean their hair. Since they didn't break anything, he'd be happy if they took things and went home. The boss was surprised it was over. He questioned the hero if he was going to put their heads on the line as a warning to others. But the hero just asked what kind of savage they take him around here. Deikai asked not to attack his house again and tell others there was no treasure here. The boss agreed and thanked the hero. Turning to the others, he told them to pack up and get out of here. The hero wondered about the black-haired woman they were talking about. He didn't understand why a stranger would send a request to break into his house. He didn't know what would happen next, but it was obvious these guys were being manipulated. After collecting all their belongings, the men saluted and said they were finished. The guy complimented them and said they could go home now. Leaving, the adventurers thanked him for his mercy and left. Exhaling tired, the guy thought of the fact that finally there would be peace and quiet. Deikai thought of the fortress city and did not like the fact that he knew so little about the situation. He asked Hestia if she could talk about this town. The girl agreed, but first, she pointed her finger at the sky and said he had a visitor. The surprised hero looked up at the sky and saw a silhouette. It was a huge dragon hovering over the heroes and looking at them. Deikai looked at the great dragon by surprise and asked if he was here because of Hestia. The girl knew him, but I was sure he was here. In that case, the hero asked what he wanted. The dragon apologized for disturbing him and asked permission to land so he could have a better conversation. The dragon addressed them as his former and present king. Watching the great dragon over their heads, the adventurers said it was not their day and decided to flee this place faster. The hero still doesn't understand the reason for this sudden visit. The dragon thanked him for letting him land, and the guy asked if he was here because of Hestia. The dragon thought it would be rude to speak to him in the dragon's tongue. With those words he reincarnates. It was Harrison who was Hestia's ex-delegation. Having taken human form, he said that in this disguise he could speak the human language and asked the hero if he understood. Deikai said with a smile that understood him, and the dragon exhaled in relief. He wasn't very good at becoming human, but the hero didn't understand what he meant. The boy asked Hestia if all the dragons were capable of becoming human. The girl said that after 100 years of life, dragons skilled in magic may or may not learn. The guy realized it was a rare skill, and the girl agreed with him. She said that also those who live long can begin to degrade in intelligence, so they become simple animals. The boy was surprised that even dragons fell into senile marshes. But Hestia said this is not something to worry about, because when it becomes clear that they are a danger, other dragons get rid of them. There were cases where dragons survived, but most died slowly from their wounds or were killed by other beasts. The hero once again surprised that dragon society was rather harsh, and asked what they needed from him. The dragons said they came here to meet their new king. As he could transform and have a small stature, he was chosen as a representative. It was an honor to meet you. With those words, the dragon bowed. Dejai noticed that he was very polite of them and thanked them. Right now, all the other dragons were waiting for them. The boy looked up the sky by surprise and saw a large band of dragons. One dragon told another that even though he was human, he could speak their language, and the other was surprised by this, for it takes humans several decades to learn their language. It was amazing for them that a hero did it for them. But Dejai only thought of the fact that he learned when he ate that apple. While the rest of the dragons were flying in the air, the representative wanted to pay tribute and asked me to tell the others to land. But the hero thought it wasn't worth it since they wouldn't all fit in here. Harrison said in that case they'd say hello. From now on, the dragons swear to follow him as their subordinates. The guy looked up at the sky and saw the other dragons bowing to him too. Dejai understood everything and asked, "So from now on, don't get too close to the city, as the people were panicking after their last visit." Harrison said they understood, so he gave the order for the rest of the dragons to come home. He thanked the hero for letting them follow him. He looked at Dejai and said if the time came and needed their power, he could use them. But the guy didn't think about the fact that one day he'd be in a similar situation. He didn't know if he needed their powers in battle. Harrison said that in this case they were lucky to have such a strong but kind king. The hero didn't understand what he meant by the word like. Looking at Hestia, Harrison smiled and said he was very kind. After all, he didn't kill Hestia. The girl seemed surprised by the dragon, who said this act was enough to swear loyalty and respect for him. The hero thought Hestia was very much loved by dragons. She had told him before they didn't need her, but she seemed to underestimate how much they still valued her. The dragon turned to the mistress, and Hestia said there was no need to speak that way now. But Harrison said it was silly, because she had led them and they always respected her. The girl was embarrassed and looked the other way. The boy thought of the fact that even among dragons there were some very good people, and he was happy that things had been resolved peacefully. He asked Harrison if that's all they wanted. Harrison said he had something to discuss with Hestia, and she looked at the dragon by surprise. He believed that the Black Dragon King had come to move and felt his unique magical power. I was hesitating like she wasn't surprised and said she understood. The hero assumed that this dragon was dangerous, but Hestia said it was harmless. In that case, the guy thought it was okay. Harrison asked me to say hi to him if you knew him. In that case, he decided to say goodbye to the heroes. The three friends looked up at the sky following the dragon. Hestia yawned tired, and the hero said a lot happened today, and that it was logical that she was tired. The girl agreed with him. The boy lay under the apple tree and said that the sun was shining and everything was finally calm. It was a good time for a nap, and Hestia thought it was a good idea to decide to join him. Sakura smiled and thought now would be a good time to start making dinner. Then the heroes slept until Sakura came to them and invited them to lunch. Dakai ordered Gollum to take care of the apple trees. Hestia called him from behind and asked if he had time. Since those adventurers were here the other day, she'd like to talk about the fortress city. The guy thanked her for her help, and the girl said it was everything instead of the rent, then unfolded the map. Dakai was surprised that the girl had a new map and said she had many of them. As she traveled the dragon-shaped world, they often broke, so she had plenty of supplies. Dakai was not surprised, remembering his power. Hestia pointed her finger south of the demon forest and said this is where the city fortress is. It's a city-state built on a plain. They live in the territory of the Black Dragon King and are surrounded by forest where wolves, ogres, leprechauns, and orcs. There were other monsters there, too. The guy noticed they were surrounded by other races and asked why they built a city in such a place. There was a dungeon downtown that created a lot of magical energy, so armed groups gathered there to make money. To go to the dungeon this industry of the fortress city, and it was very brutal. Hestia agreed and said it was efficient and did not disappear. Other races besides humans also receive magical energy. She told the hero that the dungeon creates a lot of magical energy, though not as dense and powerful as the earth here. There were many fierce tribes around the city, but also in this city there are many strong and armed people who like physical work. It seems this town had no connection to Deikai because he didn't like physical work. The girl said if he went there, he'd make a lot of money, but even if there was a lot of money, he couldn't use it. The hero asked Hestia if she needed money or anything. The girl said they weren't needed to live, but he could buy materials for the team. Besides, it took time to create the team. The kid smiled and asked me to tell him when she needed it and had give her as much as he could. Hestia asked the hero if he was sure. The team would need good materials that cost money. Using something that matched her bones would be worth it. Dakai reminded her that they were useless, so it was more beneficial to give someone who would use it. The girl smiled and said she'd buy the materials next time and thanked her. She promised to make him a great bat and also thought he needed one left over. In that case, the guy asked for the best team, and so he found a new place to invest his money. Everything was quiet in the kingdom of Prussia. A night magician entered Princess Dinia's room and told her that a delegation from the fortress city had arrived. The girl asked me to let them through, and the door opened. The dark-haired girl smiled and said it was nice to meet you. She performed as deputy chief of staff of the fortress town called Antidra. The princess was shocked to see two huge bidons in front of her. After regaining some sense, the princess realized that she was the only delegate, and Anne said it was much simpler than that. She shook the princess' hand and asked her to accept her best wishes. Princess Dinia also introduced herself and said she was some kind of representative of this town. The girl also said it was nice to meet you. Anne smiled and said it was to be expected of a great witch and second princess, because she had very delicate hands. The princess also said Anne had very strong hands, and she thought she could be trusted. That's because she was from the fortress city, and her body was her capital. The princess thought she had heard rumors the other day that the staff at headquarters had changed. But she didn't think a high-ranking officer in the fortress city could be such a beautiful woman. She asked Anne why the latter had reached the royal capital. There was a rumor from her that Prussia had defeated the White Dragon. When she heard that, she couldn't ignore it, so she came here. She just wanted to make sure it was true. But the princess thought it wasn't her intention and said it was just a groundless rumor. She couldn't let anyone know that only one person had done it. Anne apologized, and the princess thought she really wanted to get rid of the Dragon King. The girl said that wasn't true, and she just wanted to see the White Dragon King. The princess thought she had a very unusual hobby, and Anne smiled and said it was often said. After looking at the city, Anne thought there was no reason for him to be here. The royal capital repelled the attacks of the Dragon King many times, so she hoped they could provide them with information. Dinia agreed and thought about the fact that they had sent help a few days ago, and now they had to help them. Anne said she heard that the dragon had been defeated in the demon forest, and the girl wanted to know if the princess could tell us exactly where that place was. You said you'd be a big help to her. The princess was suspicious and thought she asked for something problematic, thinking it had a different purpose. Dinia was worried about what Anne knew about this place. Anne suggested that maybe she was asking for something impossible, but the princess said it wasn't true, because she didn't recommend it, because it was too dangerous in the woods. Anne decided to tell the princess she was very strong, and she didn't have to worry about her. But Dinia could feel her strength by the time they shook hands. But she wasn't worried about it. It was about not having to forget Deikai, and she was afraid to cause trouble for the hero and bother him. In that case, there was only one thing for her to do. Dinya offered to lead Anne through the demon forest, so they could talk about countermeasures against dragons along the way. The girl was happy to hear the princess answer, and thanked her for her help. But it was too late today, so they couldn't leave until tomorrow morning. Anne thanked me and asked me to take care of her. The knight said he'd take you to the room. Dinya was sure everything would be fine, because tomorrow she would take her to a place where there were no obstacles and where monsters could be defeated even by a child. The princess thought she had a plan, and all that was left was for everything to go as it should. Before Anne and Dinya visited, Hestia approached the hero. She held the team, said she'd done it as an experiment. The hero was surprised that she was able to do it in such a short time. But Hestia said she was used to it. This time she was testing the materials she had obtained on her journey. The guy asked if it was good to wear something like that, and the girl said it was okay. She could buy the materials around here since she got some money from Daikai. After that, she could use them. The magical city of Prussia was famous for its production and its magical goods market. That was expected of a dragon king who traveled all over the world. The heroine was sure she knew exactly where to get the right materials. Hestia said that the horn of an immortal unicorn living far from here was used in the creation of this staff. So he had to try to use something very complicated. The hero decided to try to use a magic key in this case. He wanted to summon a wooden golem, but once he used the magic key, the stick exploded in his hand. He couldn't understand what had happened, because he was destroyed before he even used it. The hero told Hestia he was sorry, but the girl said it was okay. Like the creator, she dreamed of him being used until he broke. It seems this time I was very focused on strength and not malleable enough. Hestia decided to do it again. The hero asked her not to work too hard. He promised to invest as much as it took. Hestia asked me to trust her, and the guy noticed that Hestia had her crafty spirit inflamed. Now the employees would be more and more. Closer to dusk, loud screams came from the Prussian tavern. The four adventurers decided to have a drink. The bald boss drank the whole mug in a sage. One man came to them and said he had brought more drinks, and the others laughed. After drinking, the boss cleaned the rest of the lip drink and said he felt alive again. The squad noticed something: the boss was drinking too fast. A guy in the squad was still scared when he was attacked by the owner of that land. He assumed it was the result. Boss poked the adventurer in the shoulder, said he wasn't scared. He was trembling with admiration. Unbelievable, the team member laughed. The boss kicked the table with all his power and said they had guns, but he was so strong that they didn't have a chance to master it. They were among the best adventurers, but still they were treated like children. The boss asked if the others realized he had let them go. It looked like he had a big heart, and the others agreed with the boss. They were hostile to him, but he didn't charge anything. One of the adventurers looked at the chief's sword and assumed it was worth a lot. The boss took the gun in his hands and said he could buy a house with lots of rooms, but he didn't even consider it. He was completely different from those bloody holy knights. This guy was strong, and the adventurer felt no hostility towards them. It wasn't easy being such a strong, gentle person. The others laughed and supported him. The boss smiled and said if they offered him to move in with him, he'd go there. And the others agreed with him. Still, he wondered who Ann Chan was, with black hair, who gave them the money after they introduced themselves to the task. He lived in the fortress city for a long time, but I've never seen such an attractive girl. He was surprised when she became the deputy chief. The team member told the others had seen her outside the city. After that he drank from his mug. You sold suspicious armor and objects in your store. She was followed there, after which she was sent to headquarters. Maybe she wasn't from the city fortress. The bald boss lifted his mug to the top and suggested that they postpone the hardest part for later. They'd be in the royal capital for a few days. Until the gold runs out, they'll watch and drink. The adventurers told the chief they'd follow him, so he spent the night in the royal capital. Anne and Denaire arrived at the entrance to the demon forest. The princess offered to continue, and the girl thanked you for your help. Anne asked the girl what she should know about an old dragon's nest that had lost its head. The fortress city is also cautious over the demon forest, and Anne has made a lot of Isledudy on the subject. She also knew about the fact that in the demon forest, somewhere in the end, there might be a valley of dragons. The princess disapproved of the girl and couldn't understand her intentions. For someone who knows about the dragon, she had very light equipment. The princess didn't want to let her look fool her. This woman in front of her, at such a young age, became the vice chief of the fortress city. She couldn't let her guard down, otherwise she could say a lot, and it would be a big problem. Dania decided that today he would show you the dragon's nest from afar and explain what they usually do. After that, they would return to the castle. The princess thought it would be better, and it was the first thing to think. She didn't have to worry about Daichai, and she hoped everything would be okay, and she could protect him. As long as everything goes as planned, the situation shouldn't get any worse. She prayed that everything would go as it should. Anne turned to Dania, wanting to ask something. The princess agreed, and she said if she wanted to ask about the dragon, she'd tell her everything. Anne said it was okay, but she noticed someone was approaching them. There was a noise coming towards them from afar. It was a great monster running towards them. The princess couldn't understand what kind of monster she was. This golem was made of black mud, and she had never seen anything like it. Thinking things weren't going according to plan, the girl created her team and prepared to attack. Meanwhile, the guy looked at the top of the house and thought about the fact that he had finally finished rebuilding the house. The house had grown a lot, so he was rebuilding it since morning. He finally did something. It was small, but now it looked like a real castle. Looking aside, he saw Hestia, and he assumed something was wrong, because the girl was wearing a robe. Hestia replied that she had decided to go to town. She had gotten some money yesterday, so she needed to buy materials for her team. The round trip only took 10 minutes. When she came back, she'd make another team, so she asked the hero to wait. Daikai smiled and agreed after that the girl left. Looking at her trail, he found it hard to believe that at this speed, she could get there and be back in 10 minutes. Sakura smiled and said she could use the power of a dragon, even in human form. Then it would be too fast. The hero thought of the fact that he never saw her move at such a great speed. The guy said that even in human form, Hestia was too strong, and she definitely wasn't something to worry about. With those words, his stomach shook, and he thought how hungry he was. Has been working since morning, so it's been a while. Sakura smiled and said she had foreseen it, so she did Benedict. She brought the open box of food for the hero. Daichai smiled and said everything was fine. He complimented Sakura, and he said she was great. Sakura served him onigiri and said it was saltier this time. The hero really appreciated it. Doing the remodeling of the house today, he was sweating and very hungry. He asked Sakura about the rice stock, how it was getting low. Sakura replied that there was enough white rice for another 2 months, and whole rice for another month while chewing his food. Guy thought he'd start growing rice, although he didn't know if it could be cultivated as apple trees, and thought to take a look as soon as possible. Sakura smiled and told the master it would be easy. She suggested trying to grow as much rice as possible. The hero said these onigiri were delicious, and he would eat them forever, as he suddenly heard screams. It was the princess who ran straight to the hero in tears. She asked Anne not to stop. The guy in shock looked at the girl and couldn't understand why they were in her garden, and who was next to the princess. The princess shouted to Daikai that she was sorry, because they were attacked by some strange creatures. Finishing her food, the hero thought she had apologized this time, so he decided not to get angry. He took a deep breath, asked permission to say something. After screaming to let him eat in peace, a hurricane formed and exploded the monster along with the princess. Dania fell on her 5th point, and Anne smiled sweetly at her. The princess remembered she hadn't been here in a long time, and the guy asked if she was okay, because it was a souvenir from the old days. On her feet, the girl adjusted her skirt, and said it wasn't like that this time. She's completely dry this time. Looking at the golem parts, The hero said it was good and asked her not to bring any more dragons, mud dolls, or anything weird here. She apologized and said she was an unknown monster. She didn't know how to handle it, and she was trapped, but the guy thought of it as a mud doll. The princess replied that she thought he was the only one who could call him a dirty doll, but he was pretty tough. The hero realized it was a golem from Earth, but whatever it was just a monster. The girl said that if there were only a few of them, she might have been able to handle them, but they were surrounded by more than 10 of these creatures. They somehow got here, constantly shooting at them. They managed to disarm almost everyone except the last one. Deikai asked why you brought him here, and the girl apologized. But since you handled it, he thought about the fact that everything was fine now. And he looked at the girl with dark hair. He asked who she was, realizing she was trapped in the flow of her magical power, but she didn't seem bothered by it. Danny explained to him that she was his guest, and suggested that Anne perform. But the girl was like in ecstasy, saying that this coup was so powerful that this force was beyond her imagination. It came to her mind, and it was a pleasant feeling of euphoria. The princess asked with shame what she had just said, and she apologized to them, saying she had forgotten a little bit. Looking at the surprise hero, she apologized. She explained that she worked at the Fortaleza City Command Center, and her name was Anne. She was the deputy chief. The guy said it was nice to meet her, and since she was from Fortaleza City, he immediately remembered these guys who were also from the same town. The hero assumed she was the boss type there, and the girl smiled. Anne immediately realized he was the head of this magical land, and the hero agreed with her. She already knew this place was full of magical energy. The girl smiled and said there were places like this in town, although they weren't so strong. Smiling, the hero noticed that she spoke as someone who knew about it. The princess was a little lost. The hero noticed that and asked the girl what was wrong because she had a strange expression on her face. But the princess said it was unexpected, since Anne was having a normal conversation with Deikai, and the guy agreed. After all, it was very rare for someone to have a normal conversation with him. Ordinary people would start choking around him. Turns out the head of the city of Fortress was pretty strong. The girl asked the princess to talk to that person more, and asked if she cared. Dainaya was insecure and looked at Deikai. But the guy said it was okay, and he was done. Now he was free, and in that case he offered to have tea and talk calmly. Since the guys from Fortress City were involved, he'd like to find out as much as he can. It wasn't bad to have more information. He said it would be great, and he just wanted to relax a little. Sakura smiled and said she would make a cup of tea for the host in this case. So the tea started in his garden, while Sakura was serving tea. The hero discovered that the fortress and the royal capital are cooperating and Anne is the envoy. But it wasn't clear to him why they came to his forest and what kind of monster it was, because he'd never seen one before. The princess said she'd never seen dolls like this before. They were attacked as soon as they entered the forest, so she didn't know where it came from. Deikai was surprised that the princess had never seen these creatures, although she knew more about this forest than he did. He concluded that he was a new creature born in the forest. But there was no black soil in this forest, so it couldn't have come naturally. The hero suggested that maybe Anne knew that. But the girl said she had never been to this forest before, so she asked the princess to lead the search. The hero looked sadly at Dania, and she told him that she had explained her methods of countering the dragon for her. But they didn't want to disturb Deikai either. The hero understood everything, but he was just a simple man living in these woods. He didn't think about the fact that such important people would come so far to him. At least the princess thought she'd recognize him, so it's okay, though she was the only one who should be grateful to him. And she didn't think the hero could be called a simple man. He didn't realize what kind of strange statement she said, and Dania asked him to ignore it. Anne looked at the thing near Deikai in surprise and said it was a team. The guy said she was right and thought of her as something else. But she said no, she felt great power in it. Anne asked the hero to take a closer look. She'd like to know what he was made of, and Deikai agreed. Looking closely at the team, the girl noticed something. Smiling, she said it was made from the bones of the Dragon King, and for the first time in a long time, Anne sees the work of the Dragon King again. In shock, the princess stood up and with all her power hit the table and asked if it was true. The hero noticed she was agitated and asked if everything was okay. But the girl asked me to answer your question. She said it was a national treasure of the highest class, which was kept in a treasure under the strictest protection. In the event of a national disaster, the strongest wizard must catch him. The hero at first couldn't believe he was so valuable. He had broken it so many times without even knowing, and now he was ashamed of it in front of his creator. The princess saw it for the first time and asked how he did it. But the hero said it was just a gift. Dania still did not believe, but as he was, there was nothing surprising about it. And, as if you didn't understand anything, you asked what they were talking about. Dania didn't know what to say, and the guy asked why she was looking at him like she wanted something from him. She thought it would be nice to talk about who he was and who he lived with. But smiling, the guy said he didn't see anything wrong, so he didn't care. The princess wanted to confess to Anne that there was someone else living with Deikai. At that moment, Hestia came in and said she was home. As soon as the hero greeted Hestia, Anne turned to her and said her older sister was here. With all her legs, Anne ran to Hestia, screaming that she could finally see her. She hugged the girl so that Hestia's head sank in her bidons. Hestia realized that it was the smell of this child, and resisting the hug, asked to get away from her. But Anne was very happy to do it, and asked to keep that look cold longer, holding the strongest girl. The hero thought they were drawing too much attention to themselves, and asked for an explanation of what was happening. He asked Dania who she had brought to him, but the girl only looked at the hero incomprehensibly, and Deikai wasn't even surprised by it. She said she didn't realize what was going on here. While Anne hugged her sister, the guy thought there was a new problem in the family. Screaming in his sister's big tits, Hestia said he was a black dragon king named Anne. A long time ago, she was looking after her. The hero had difficulty believing, because Hestia looked like a child and Anne looked like an adult. Everything seemed so strange that he didn't understand anything anymore. Meanwhile, Anne was squeezing her sister even harder. Deichai said the Dragon King looks younger than he really is. He also commented that his sister very much likes Hestia, squeezing the girl even more, and said it is exactly as he says. Hestia just pushed her balls and said she was pissing her off. Anne squirmed with pleasure and said it hurt, but it was so good. She asked her sister to push her away even further. The hero said it was horrible because the first time he met her, he thought she was a reasonable person. He didn't know she'd behave so scandalous. Looking at Anne and Hestia's confrontation, the hero decided his common-sense meter had broken. But Dragon Kings must be able to hide well from ordinary people. The boy looked at the princess, who was murmuring to herself in shock when she took her hat. She was wondering whether or not to report the matter to the Dragon King, the deputy city chief of the fortress. Deikai thought Dania cared too much about everything. Anne shone directly with pleasure while talking about the relief she was. After leaving Hestia, the girl turned to the hero and staggered at him, talking about how stuffy it was. Seeing the two dragons, Deikai was so tired he didn't even know how to react. It was really extraordinary. Just an incredible contrast. Apologizing for the question, the guy asked Anne why the Dragon King was the vice chief of the fortress city. He thought about the fact that the girl was planning on taking over the fortress town. If that were the case, it would be a big problem, and he wouldn't want to get involved at all. But Anne smiled and said she wasn't thinking of anything like it. His main business was simply selling goods. Imitating her own sister, she did and sold various items and things. She became a deputy chief. Anne was a child who became a Dragon King without knowing. She, unaware, raised her status. The hero realized she got a position at the top of town for nothing. The fortress city was incredible in many ways. But Hestia is a famous sorceress and Anne is the deputy chief of the fortress city. For dragon kings, they get along very well with humans. It was good that they were harmless. Anna's eyes were full of lust. She was very happy to see her older sister. Hestia hid behind Deikai, and the smiling guy said she didn't really like it. Hestia told him that this boy is so brave, serious, harmless and quite sensible. Although she tends to do various kinds of damage. She could handle it, but not this strangulation. So that's what Hestia meant when she talked about being harmless. Without Hestia's injuries, she's basically harmless. And, in the meantime, you cleaned your lips. And they bowed, which surprised the hero. She smiled and said it was nice to meet Deikai, and since your sister was by your side, she had nothing to worry about. She's never met anyone as strong as him. For dragons, this is very important. The hero scratched the back of the head and said he understood. Anne was a little embarrassed, and she honestly said that she would like very much to take advantage of the glow of her strength. But bowing, the girl said she didn't have time today and thanked her for accepting it. Leaving, she said goodbye, and the hero looked carefully at her. All the time, the princess mumbled to herself. Above all, she was thinking of telling the whole truth. The hero didn't know what would happen next, but suggested leaving things as they were. Hero asked if everything was okay with Hestia, who had a serious face. Hestia was confused, and I could understand why this child was coming here. Deikai seemed to come back, and Hestia trembled with fear. The boy smiled and told her that if she had any problems, she could immediately run to him for help. Hestia thanked me and said she would. It was obvious that the number of visitors in his home was only growing. Then the Dragon King was totally defeated. After the tea party, the hero started cleaning up. Apart from the dirt of the doll in his hands, he noticed it was very heavy, and it was very difficult to remove. Hestia unfortunately looked down and apologized, but the hero didn't understand what he was apologizing for. Hestia thought that since she was here, this child came to him and caused trouble. But Deikai asked her not to worry, and said it wasn't her fault, only that black doll was guilty. But Hestia thought about it and decided to say something. Actually, it's one of Anne's skills. That's why you blamed Anne for it. The hero looked at the girl interrogating. It was the black metal blow when Anne mixed metal with soil and made dolls with it. Deikai looked at dirt and realized why it was so heavy. It was because it had metal in it. Maybe he can find it outside the garden. But the guy still doesn't understand why they attacked him. Hestia explained that when Anne is frustrated, she has a habit of making them attack herself. That goes on until she cools off. Deikai asked if she was serious, noting that this dragon was annoying. But Hestia didn't think she did it in town either. But later, she'd still scold her for it. But the guy hesitated, since it only gave him pleasure. Hestia agreed and said she'd probably like it. There was nothing she could do about this useless Dragon King. While Deikai was cleaning the dirt, he asked Hestia, since they live among humans, do they not understand their true nature? The girl said that while they were in human form, they wouldn't be recognized. Besides, they were suppressing their magical power. The hero was surprised by Hestia's ability. Another Dragon King usually drinks with humans and fights with them. Most people live the life they want, happy, interesting lives, or just having fun. She immediately thought of her sister. Hestia told the hero that he could also suppress his constant escape from magical energy. The hero sighed and thought how he couldn't even feel it continually coming out of it. But while he was here, everything should be fine. Hestia thought of the fact that if he were a mere human, then he would have died a long time ago. Looking at the reasoning and tension Hestia, the guy asked her not to tell such scary things. Hestia pointed her finger at him and said the fact remains. Magic power is necessary to sustain life. If it goes on like this, he'll die like this. But the hero thought his magical power was just a useful power. But it turns out your life depends on it. Hestia didn't think there would be any serious problems with her magical power. There is a possibility of attracting monsters. Looking surprised at your hand, Deikai never thought it could cause trouble. Of course, he knew this place was full of magical power, and that's why they were being attacked by monsters. But he didn't know he was attracting them. Hestia didn't think it was that important, because the dragon's own vein attracted more attention than he did. Hestia offered to teach him to suppress power, and the boy asked if it was so easy. The girl touched the hero's belly and waved affirmatively. She used magic to cover the mirage. The hero noticed his entire body covered in a small glow. Hestia made him avail of his magical power and covered Deikai with him, preventing him from leaking. Now ordinary people could feel the same amount of magical power as if it were dragon-shaped. The boy was surprised to think his body was strengthened. It was like wearing wooden armor. Just a lot lighter, it looked like a weak amplification, and the hero tried to jump slightly a few times. Deikai thought he could create such coverage, and Hestia said he just needed practice. In that case, the hero offered to try, and tried to use cover magic. A glow appeared around his body, and he thought about what he had accomplished. Hestia didn't like him and said it was a success. She couldn't understand why he succeeded the first time, and the hero asked if it was a bad thing. Hestia seemed offended, and he said sadly that he had nothing left to teach him. It was as if the meaning of its existence had simply disappeared. Deikai looked at Hestia. Despite her saying that this coverage will make her daily life very difficult, it would be difficult for him to move normally because his body was not yet used to it. But Hestia disagreed with him. She said it was because her magic power was completely blocked. The hero understood and said he had suppressed too much, but sometimes blocking the power was even useful. He will not be noticed by those who may feel magical power or are guided by him. For example, these are magical golems of stone. Deikai thought it was useful. But on the other hand, it's best to release some magic power to avoid unnecessary problems. Deikai said it was very difficult to control. Hestia offered to let you do that in this case, since it's hard for him. She asked me to call when he needed it. The boy agreed, since Hestia is better than him in control of all these things. Until he got used to it, had trust her. Deikai caressed the girl's head. Hestia rejoiced. Along this path its existence would make more sense. Princess Dania and Anne were having dinner at Prussian Castle. Dania really couldn't believe Anne was the Dragon King. And when she found out, at that moment she thought her heart was going to jump. Anne apologized to Dania for wanting to be more confined, but she lost control. The princess asked if the city chief knew who she was. Anne said no. She originally got the position by pure chance, and the director doesn't know she's the Dragon King. She usually worked as a deputy chief, and dealt mainly with security measures. That made it easier for adventurers. Pritzneza thought about the fact that Anne cared about people, so it's okay to leave things as they were for now. As long as Dania could defend the royal capital, she didn't care. But still, she was curious about what kind of mud doll it was, and if it was a new species, then some action had to be taken. Anne admitted that she made them, and the princess was surprised. Anne apologized for not saying that before and explained that the doll was her scout. She knew that Deikai-sama lived in the vein of the dragon being very powerful. That's why she sent the dolls to look first, because if she wasn't careful, he could kill her. She also explored the forest. However, after they all had tea together, she realized that Deikai herself was very kind and strong. Now it seemed like a waste of time. The princess understood what she was experiencing, because at first she was also very frightened when she met Deikai. But still, she didn't understand why those dolls attacked her. Anne smiled and said it was just her hobby. The princess looked at Anne with a tense smile, and said she understood. But the way he scolded her made her feel a little better. It was nice doing it with more dirt and metal. But she felt much better about Deikai's own magical power. It was very powerful. Dania didn't want to go through with it, and she didn't want to say anything about people's taste. The princess asked how Anne was with the results on her forest exploration. Anne unfortunately shook. But things aren't as good as you'd like. Due to the effects of the magical forest, the dungeon of the fortress city is expanding. The princess was terrified. That was the main reason why the vice chief of the fortress city came here. Thanks to the dragon's vein in the magical forest, magical power and Prussian lands became much richer. The dungeon is like a living creature that feeds on magical power, so it will inevitably advance to this earth. Anna's doll searched the vast area around the royal capital and found several tunnels connecting it to the dungeon of the fortress city. If they are damaged, there is a chance that dungeon monsters will appear in the vicinity of Prussia. The princess took the situation with the Dragon King behind her mind, as a new threat from the Earth had just been resolved. She knew the basic information about the dungeons, but she had no details. She asked Anne to tell you a little bit about the dungeons. She wanted to know how long it would take the monsters to get here. To some extent, it was possible to know when the monsters would appear. But it was impossible to determine the exact date and time. If the dungeon progressed at the same rate, they would arrive in their place in the next few days. The princess asked how the damage could be reduced, and Anne said it was very simple. All you had to do was destroy the monsters by reducing their numbers. That was the best option. Currently, there are many monsters in the fortress city, and they will come here to find new feeding sites. Even if they use all their strength to create a magical barrier, she won't be able to cover the entire city. It would be a resistance race. The princess didn't know if she had enough magic power until the number of monsters went down. But at least she didn't have to worry about the magic forest. The monsters couldn't even get close to Deikai. Even if a dungeon appeared in the magical forest, it would be good. The problem was city security. It was necessary to make a contract with the adventurers first for them to have more strength. The princess sadly exhaled, saying it was a difficult situation. Anne smiled at her and said if there was something she didn't understand about dungeons, she could ask her about it. She was very happy to see her older sister alone, but if the places where they could see each other become less, she would be sad. Anne came to the royal capital to help them with this situation. Dinia smiled at Anne and said she would gladly accept the help of the Dragon King, owner of the fortress city. First, they should have eaten before the battle started. The princess thought of the fact that she would have to stay up all night and think of possible countermeasures. This was the night to start developing a plan. It was a beautiful sunny day in the courtyard of the apple orchard. The hero was lying on his pillow and standing still. Rolando to the other side, he smiled, thinking how he hadn't rested like that in a long time. Meanwhile, Sakura served a cup of tea. She told the master to rest as much as he needed. The guy looked in the courtyard of the house and saw Hestia running to them. She was running at a frightening speed, and Deikai thought she had rushed into town to get supplies for the staff. After all, he broke his team yesterday, and he felt sorry for it. But he created a great golem. Sakura noticed that Hestia was enjoying it. Judging from the fluctuations in her magical power, she was having fun and was even happy. She probably liked to do that, and the hero got it. But he had some tension. He couldn't feel and see the magical power as Sakura could. Deikai assumed it was because he hadn't practiced on him. Sakura suggested this option, but the most important factor is that the master's magic power itself is Great Asham. To feel the magical power of animals and humans, it was necessary to concentrate very well. That's because the magical power emanating from them is quite weak. But the hero noticed that Sakura could feel it perfectly. After all, she's a home, and she's very sensitive to people's presence. Dake asked if he would like to visit the city, but Sakura said he did not want to. She smiled and said she cared for her master alone and watched her sleeping face and watched her life, so she's the happiest. The guy blushed and smiled and said he understood. In that case, there will be times when he will go alone. He told Sakura that if she needed anything, she could tell him. But the girl said she didn't need anything. The guy noticed she had no wishes. But Sakura blinked and said it was a house and much like her master. After all, the guy didn't want anything either. Deikai thought there was still something special he would like, and that it was delicious food, although I doubted if it was a real desire. After thinking about it, he decided he'd probably want a more stable life. Sakura said she had that wish too. Sakura asked the hero if he wanted to go to town. In fact, he thought he didn't have to go there. Needs and more were gathered around the house, and the werewolves brought it. Dakai smiled and told Sakura that he would stay home in this case, and the girl cried. The hero was surprised and Sakura said that hearing those words from her master made her feel as good as if she had gone to heaven. The guy admitted he was a friend from home, and that's fine as long as she was happy. The best thing for Sakura was to take care of her master. She loved cooking, washing, preparing the bath, spreading the futon, and greeting him every morning. When she did these things, she was very happy. According to her, to make Sakura's life comfortable, he had to leave all his worries to her and thank the girl. But still, Daikai thought he should have helped a little too. But Sakura was adamant against it, and she wanted her master to rest and enjoy it. After all, that's what made her happy. But the guy said if he did that, he'd feel useless, and fell to the ground. But today, he thought about listening to Sakura. Sakura offered her lap as a pillow, and the guy agreed. The girl squeezed her head right between her soft legs. The hero lifted his head and looked at her, and Sakura thought of the fact that he was suffering. But the blush guy didn't expect her to do it while he was lying down. He bowed his head and offered to lie on his side while something suddenly alarmed him. Meanwhile, the monsters gathered in your house, and as he played Sakura, an automatic synchronization occurred. Daikai noticed that there were more monsters than usual, but it didn't matter, and asked the golem to be kind and deal with them. The golem obeyed his master. Only 10 seconds passed, and Sakura told the master that he gave them a good fight. It's been a while, and even the monsters needed to rest. He was very comfortable in the sun, and under Sakura's warm feet, the guy fell asleep. He thought this was the best day of his life, and that his home was the best.